Not the last one that he's
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, thank you. We have a full house. We're not giving anything away, so whatever you were told, that was a lie. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, November 19th Planning Board meeting. First order of business is roll call.
Rupert Friday.
Here.
Jerry Burnetta.
Here.
Dr. O'Neill.
Here.
Mark Brady.
Here.
Thomas Callahan.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a full board. You're looking on.
Okay. First order is a public hearing, Clark Road subdivision, preliminary plan, major subdivision with street creation, plat 5, lot 27.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Do you want me to recuse myself?
please. Thank you. For those of you that are here, I respect your time. This has been a subdivision that has been on our books for about a year. So I want to give the parties involved time, but I also don't want you here until midnight. So we're going to go, we'll just order pizza and stay. But, so we're going to give a reasonableness to this, and if it's continuing, then we'll move on, and council has agreed, and we'll hear everybody tonight. So.
Good evening.
Good evening. Are you ready to go?
I am.
All right. So you want to introduce yourself, state your position in all of this, and then you're going to make a presentation to us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael Resnick, on behalf of the applicant and the owner. And as this board is aware, this project has been before you before. It was most recently before you in July and August of 2023. There was a delay. That delay was related to us needing to submit for a new DEM permit, which we will get to this evening. I have with me tonight two experts, two professionals, part of my team. Ben Cato, who's our civil engineer, Scott Rabideau, who is our wetland biologist, and they'll both be offering testimony this evening. I know that you're a planning board, not a zoning board, but I would ask that you consider their testimony as that expert opinion. Because it's been a while since this project was in front of you, if you'll indulge me, I just want to go through a little background. The property is located at Clark Road, plat 5, lot 27, Narragansett. Project site is approximately 20.5 acres. The site is currently R80, and the site is surrounded by similarly zoned residential districts. Your future land use map indicates that this is an area for residential, moderate to low density developments. The proposed subdivision project is now in compliance with your zoning ordinances, lot area, and wetlands requirements, because after we obtained master plan approval, we presented to your zoning board and we obtained special use permit relief. So as a result of that special use permit relief, and in addition, a waiver that was granted by this board at master plan, we are in full conformance with zoning with that relief. Project again was previously before you for master plan. In the staff report, your staff has indicated that there was a waiver, and that's in there. Project description, and let me just say, we've also reviewed the staff memorandum this evening. It is substantially similar to the staff report that was presented to you previously in August. And in fact, it does have 7 conditions. 2 through 7, we have no issue with. There's no objection. We do have a question about condition 1. I think that it can be worked out, but I also don't want to redirect our presentation right now, so I think it would be best if we proceed, and we can always talk about the conditions, but generally speaking, positive staff report that we're in agreement on. The lot, the subject parcel, subdivided into 5 individual lots, 1 single-family home on each lot. This proposed 5-lot subdivision will have approximately 500 feet of roadway, driveways, utilities, etc. Access is going to be through Clark Road. Minimum lot size for each lot is 2.5 acres, which meets is in conformance with low density residential. As Mr. Rabideau will get into more, and Mr. Cato, the arrangement of the roadway and the residential developments were designed to minimize impact on the wetlands. Just as far as a little more history, the preliminary plan application for this project was first submitted in October 2020. During the hearing, it became apparent that my client had to go to the town council to seek sewer hookup. So we went. We were unable to get that approval. We were denied, and as a result, we went back to DEM, and through Mr. Cato, Mr. Rabideau, we applied for and have received 5 individual OWTS systems, which will serve as waste management in lieu of the sewer. Also, during our presentation to you at preliminary, back in July and August of 2023, we understood that we had a wetland permit that was close to expiring. Mr. Rabideau can get into that with a little bit more detail. Suffice it to say, we were unable to move forward with the project without a new DEM permit. In fact, your staff essentially rendered an incomplete certificate saying you don't have a complete project now because that permit has lapsed. We went through that process, we applied to DEM, we have obtained that permit is active, it's been recorded, and at this point, we did request that your staff issue a certificate of completeness. That was done so on November 13th. So as we stand here today, we have a complete project with all the requisite permits for you to review. And I would just note, generally speaking, the freshwater wetland permit that we got, recorded October 25th, 2024. And generally speaking, in that determination, Mr. Rabideau can get into more particulars, DEM determined that the project met the criteria for a general variance under Freshwater Wetlands Acts, allowing for the issuance of the permit with specific terms and conditions. And with that, unless the members of the board have any questions for me, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Cato to generally discuss the project, and in particular, get into some of the minutiae like stormwater, etc.
Do you have any questions of council? Jerry, do you have questions? No, thank you. No. Rupert, questions of council? Great, you want to continue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cato?
I would, just for the record, council, I just would note that the property is 894,546 square feet, but the buildable area is 84,441. Just so people understand, okay? Because we take out for the wetlands and for the right-of-ways.
Okay. Understood.
And you know, just trying to get a little bit more specific on things. Thank you.
Tommy Swearman.
Yeah, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last.
Benjamin J. Cato, C-A-I-T-O, registered professional engineer with Millstone.
And because we are taking testimony under oath, if you could just briefly describe your education, your experience presenting before municipal boards.
Sure, absolutely. As I mentioned, I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Rhode Island as well as state of Connecticut. I have gone through the various collegiate level classes in order to obtain those certificates. I've given testimony before boards throughout Rhode Island, zoning, planning, and town councils, including this board, on numerous occasions.
And based on that, I asked Mr. Chairman that Mr. Cato be recognized as an expert in his profession as a civil engineer.
So moved. Seconded? Anybody? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you. Mr. Cato?
Thank you very much. I'm going to cut down a big portion of what I was originally going to say because Attorney Resnick kind of went through the generalities of the project. We can get into more of the detail from here forward. So, as was mentioned, we have a 5-lot residential subdivision with roadway creation. This will be a town road, so it will be built to town standards. In your planning director's report, you'll see a comment from Public Works on the cross-section of roadway, which we will update to make sure it adheres to the town standards. We have no issues with Public Works comments in that letter.
Okay, that's noted as page 3, section C of our letter from the planning.
Sounds right.
You concur? I'll give you time, relax.
I have my copy of my letter on my chair over there.
Relax.
Are you looking for the staff report?
Yeah, page 3, council,
Sounds right.
section C is the top of the page, titled Public Works.
Page 3, section C, Public Works, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, there's substantial wetlands on this property, and this board is well aware of that. We've been through this numerous occasions in front of this board along the way through master plan and whatnot. This plan here shows how the subdivision was laid out with our improvements only within areas that are not within wetland proper and limited into jurisdictional wetland buffers by DEM. What I mean by that is there are numerous locations, or a few locations on this plan where we had to cross a wetland, cross a stream in order to get to upland areas in the back. And that is all part of a normal wetlands application, which we applied for and received approval for. So lot 1 on this plan is up on your top left. Lot 1 involves a driveway that encroaches slightly into a wetland buffer, which is why you'll see on numerous plans throughout the set is, as agreed to by DEM, we have some screening plantings here, and we have a critter crossing that was established to help the migrational patterns with some of the different species that live within those wetlands, and Mr. Rabbit, I'm sure could explain further. We have a septic system proposed for this lot that was, we received subdivision suitability for, which is the case for all lots, which means we have determined through DEM that we have substantial separation of water table, and enough to do a design for a residential septic system. Lot 2 is down the bottom left on your sheet here. It is the only developable area that we're using down on this lot is in the extreme corner. This is going to have its own frontage on Clark Road, its own driveway up from Clark Road. It's not part of the actual cul-de-sac. Lots 1, 3, 4, and 5 all come off of the cul-de-sac. Lots 3 and 4 are, as you can see, typical residential lots. Their frontage on the new road, their backyards would be in the facing the wetland areas. And then lot 5 is a longer driveway that's your top right on this screen, and lot 5 involves a wetland crossing, which involves an arch culvert that we're going to use to span an existing stream that's there. This existing area has a wetland crossing there today. It's a historical wetland crossing. We would call it consider a cart path. It's got some stones laying in the stream that was used traditionally to get up into that area, and that's the same location that we're proposing this crossing. And all of these crossings have been, and encroachments have been approved by DEM, as I mentioned. For stormwater management, the stormwater has been designed in accordance with the state regulations and with the correlating town regulations. We have water quality treatment proposed with dry swales along the roadway. We also have some rain garden bioretention style treatment for rooftop for these houses. And then we have extended detention in numerous places throughout the site. The detention basins are there to retain water during a high rain event and let it out over time so that we don't have adverse impacts to the neighboring properties. For the most part, these detention basins are located adjacent to the road. There's one here and here. It's a new road. This one is also adjacent to the new road. And then the individual lots have some as well, smaller detention basins. And then there's one located between these homes over here. All of the detention ponds accept water from all of the impervious areas, and in doing so we can mitigate impacts from a heavy storm. There is sewer existing in Clark Road, as was mentioned. There's one permittable hookup for this lot, allowed by the town engineer, and it's through the sewer memorandum. At this point, we are showing 5 septic systems The reason being was we wanted to demonstrate that we have the ability to build septic systems on all lots, but there is the right to connect to a sewer for one lot should the developer choose to do so. Obviously, we'd have to go through the town engineer's office and obtain the applicable permits. The septic systems.
Hold on a sec. Point of information.
Yes.
The lot is number 2, isn't it? That could
We
be,
were originally talking about lot number 2,
could be hooked to septic system.
certainly the simplest lot.
Can you do me a favor and just identify it for people that aren't familiar with these plans? Thank you.
Lot 2 is located over here, although again, that'll all be worked out with the engineer when they move forward, so which one that they, certainly makes the most amount of sense to use lot 2. Public water is available, so we're showing public water connections for all 5 homes. We also have street lighting that was provided to the town. We have 4 poles located, it's hard to see on this plan, but there are 4 poles along the roadway. There's one here, 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 and then one up over here. Also street trees as required by your ordinance. As mentioned before, we have numerous approvals for this site in place, this project in place. We have the significant alteration permit from DEM, which has since expired. We have master plan approval, special use permits from this town. We also have preliminary subdivision suitability from DEM, and then a new wetlands permit for the recently changed wetlands regulations, dated October 8th of 2024. That's the most recent permit obtained. So that's kind of the specifics of the project. If there's questions, I'd be happy to answer as best I can.
Okay, Dr. O'Neill?
Yeah. Could you talk about at least 4 of these sites are going to have septic systems. So many proposals before us, when the homes are proposed, have whatever 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms with that septic system, but then they have bonus rooms, and dens, and attics that are a little bit, because this is such a wet area. How, verbiage-wise, when you process this and sell these sites, how are you going to manage that? This is really wet as you go back in there. Not that little lot down here, but those areas.
Yeah. The OWTS system has those limitations built in, correct?
Right, it's by bedroom, as you mentioned. So the only,
Five bedrooms, it is?
well, whatever the design is, if they're 5 bedrooms, they'll be designed for 5 bedrooms. If they're 3 bedrooms, they would be designed for 3, and what that does is dictates the size of the system. And once you have an approval from DEM, you have a septic approval, you'll limit it to those number of bedrooms that you have been approved.
I think the question at hand is what's the approval for each septic?
We have subdivision suitability, so we don't have specific OWTS approvals yet. That will be done as each lot is developed down the road. This is the first step in that process.
Yep.
Subdivision suitability demonstrates to the town that we have the ability, there's a significant separation of water table that we can indeed design an OWTS system for these lots as shown on the plan. They're estimated right now, their size that's shown on the plan is estimated for, I believe it's a 4-bedroom system. As we move forward, with each lot, the system would be designed individually to that lot for that developer or for that owner at that time.
And ultimately, we would make the owner aware in a purchase and sales agreement, et cetera, and during the closing process about what encumbrances there are on the property, including limitations from the OWTS. So it would be communicated, it'd be part of the closing, it would be part of the record. Obviously, normally in these situations, a potential buyer does get a title policy. These are items that would show up as well in that examination, that the lot is encumbered by those types of items.
Point of information, if I can. Council, any chance that the developer would agree to deed restrict these based on what the bill, so that, I mean, we can't predict or prevent anybody from doing something, converting a room, but if you have quote-unquote bonus rooms, we're very concerned in areas where we have septic. And people take bonus rooms and all of a sudden they're bedrooms. And now we get another bedroom and somebody sneaks in the bathroom and all of that. And, you know, these are delicate systems. they're very sophisticated, but they are delicate. Is there any chance that the developer would be willing to deed restrict those to say that it's a 3-bedroom, is built as a 3-bedroom, it stays as a
Sure,
3-bedroom?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, so let me say this. Generally speaking, I understand the concern.
Yep.
I do believe in some ways it is superfluous because of the DM permit. That said, it is not a conversation I've had with my client.
Okay.
It's a conversation that we are willing to have, and I can do it later this evening,
No problem.
or et cetera.
I
But
respect
certainly
that.
something that we would consider.
Okay, I
Absolutely.
respect that, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Rubin.
just to keep in mind, when we talk about bedrooms, when we do our design calculations for bedrooms,
Yeah.
that's assuming the bedroom has 2 people in it. So in most cases, these systems are over-designed by a factor of 2, because most people will have two individuals in every bedroom of a home.
Dr. O'Neill, thank you for giving me some time. Back to you.
Back to me? Well, like, yeah, I'm a believer. So if you design it as a because of the soils, you can't have more than a 4-bedroom system, and somebody builds the big, the mega house, the system will eventually not handle it. So now's the time, I think, to talk about it, because obviously you've looked into it in terms of the possibility of at least hooking number 2 into the town sewer system, and that's not a conversation. It's a conversation.
For those who are actually working this, if you have a hard time hearing us, please let us know. Okay? Thank you. Right. Dr. O'Neill, any more questions? Jerry?
Good, thank you.
Rupert?
So one question, I think goes to you. So the road specifications are different than what was designed. And the question is, does that affect the cost of the road?
No, it's just it comes out as a wash,
Okay.
essentially. These facts, we have, and I also have at the bottom of the calculation sheet for the bonding amount, there is a contingency in there
Okay.
for any differences like that. I believe it's 15%.
And Mr. Friday, just for my own clarification,
Yep.
I believe on page 3 of the staff report, there were 4 items that were outlined by DPW, and I believe that's what we're referencing. Mr. Cato, do we have any issues with meeting those 4 items as a condition to final approval?
No.
Yeah, so I guess I was thinking the bond amount, did it need to change if the cost of the road is different? So-
Thank you very much.
Mr. Friday, anything else?
That's it.
Okay. I have a couple questions. Cost estimate was revised November 2024.
Correct.
That's
Okay. My understanding from the record is that this is, putting a road in is kind of new for the developer. So, and I know in past, you had included a contingency fee on top of it within the bond, and I'm not trying to cost your client money. I understand what a bond costs to cover, believe me. But I want to make sure that we're protected as a community. So are there contingencies within the bond dollar amount that's proposed in this?
There is a contingency.
What percent?
15?
15?
Yes.
Okay, great. The wetlands, the conservation easement, all right?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's about 5%.
Yeah, that's what I thought, that's what I kind of thought.
There is a 5 in it, I apologize.
I like 15 better, especially in today's market. I mean, I don't want to cost your client money because I know it's per diem carrying,
Yep,
but 5% is pretty skinny on a job like this.
we're looking at $1,100 per linear foot of road,
Yeah.
which is kind of on the higher end right now for a road that includes sewers, this road does not include. So I feel comfortable with the number,
Okay.
if that's something that we can certainly discuss.
I'll leave that to you and the staff.
Absolutely,
No,
we
so
can
we're gonna
consider
handle here.
that. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Maintenance of the road going forward, is that part of the HOA?
Yes.
And, okay, so my next question.
Tell the audience what the HOA is.
HOA is a homeowners association. So maintenance of the road belongs to them. So my question then becomes the development-wide runoff system that you showed. What is going to be the ongoing maintenance and recording, and how is that going to be handled so that, 3 years from now, it's not all filled in and we got happy times?
Sure. So there's a binding maintenance agreement that is part of the DEM permit that would need to be recorded once completed, and it needs to be completed by, essentially once a contractor is determined and the homeowners association has finalized those pieces of building. That is recorded and enforceable. Spelled out on the plans for part of the construction documents, it tells specifically who's responsible for what until the site is established and runoff is reduced, so it's clear and spelled out in the report, in the manuals that come along with it, who's responsible for what for how long. There's also a budget amount for maintenance. It's included in there, so that the homeowners association is aware of what they have to provide annually for that upkeep.
Okay, so I'm not worried about you guys while you're doing this. It's 5 years from now, when, you know, houses been sold and changed hands. We've had developers before us who've had the same situation, and they've agreed to a reporting to the town on a regular basis to be determined with staff as to the actual maintenance results. You guys okay with that?
Again, it's something.
Talk about it with your client,
Yes.
but yet understand where I'm coming from, because, you know, this is great now, and you guys, I have no worries about how you're gonna leave this. I worry 5 years from now, when all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we forgot about that. Whereas we've had other developers, same situation, have agreed to a reporting system back to the town, and coordinate that with staff, so that when they have somebody come in to inspect, to look at the maintenance, et cetera, those reports immediately go back to the town, so we know that there's ongoing. It's just a thought. Conservation easement.
Yes.
I didn't see anywhere that it's in the Bible here, it gets a little lost after a while. Has it been updated to include changes in configuration, requirements, easements, and DEM conditions?
No.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There's a couple pieces to that, so I
Yeah, I
just want
know.
to address it separately.
I just thought I'd throw it all into one dish and whip it up for you.
The plan, I appreciate that. The plan that you have before you, and the plan that has been presented on the board here, it does incorporate all of the comments from the DEM permit. So any condition of the DEM permit is on the plan. The town planner has asked in her report that the easement, the conservation easement, be revised to incorporate the changes of limit of disturbance. So there's a little less disturbance proposed today than there was in previous presentations. That's kind of shown, I think, on this plan here, where the overlaps. So what the town is asking for is for the easement plan to be modified to reflect these changes, which we wanted to wait till we had in my mind, it made sense to wait until we had an approval from this board, and we weren't going to change anything further. We have no issue with that comment. We will be providing that to the town once we're all settled in. But yeah, that's the idea, is that plan will change.
All right, I just want to make sure that was on your checklist. Fire hydrant.
Yep.
There's one on Clark?
There is, yes. There is one on Clark. You can see it on there.
Yeah, the fire department chief, but there are people here that don't really know what's, you know, they're new to this, so I want bases covered.
So yeah, the fire department has looked at it. I'm just trying to find it on the plan. It is.
Yep.
There's, all right, so it's up here. The existing hydrant is right up here. So just off the top corner of the site.
Okay, the fire department signed off on it.
Correct.
Okay.
We're also, just for the record, we're proposing a hydrant at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. That's even better. So we have a system-wide for the development. I'm presuming when building comes in for each site, you're going to include on-site rain gardens, collections from runoff from roof, et cetera, so forth, and that would be part of those plans, I'm presuming. I mean, you guys do, it's been pretty thorough otherwise.
Right, so the drainage design as proposed incorporates the rooftops and driveways. If there are changes to those, then we might have individual things on lots, individual BMPs on lots, that will be addressed, and the appropriate maintenance schedules will be provided.
So all the roofs and all the roof runoff is going to be funneled to the site runoff. It's not gonna
Correct.
be dealt with on-site?
It's a little of both.
Okay.
So for instance, lot one, its treatment is down as part of the site treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Lots 3 and 4, very similar. Similar treatment goes in here as from the roadway.
Mm-hmm.
These ancillary lots 2 and 5 have their own systems on their lot, so it's a kind of a mixture.
Okay. All right. Couple of things on your checklist. Fee and lieu, you still gotta work those calculations out for open space? I'm not looking for an answer, I just wanna make
Yes.
sure it's on your checklist.
Yep.
Okay. So you'll be working that with the town and the staff, determine the value of the open space. All right, and that, and sorry, folks, I'm going through this quick. I think that's my list. You guys have anything else you want to add in relation to the questions that you've been asked?
Mr. Cato?
I think my presentation is complete.
Okay.
So let Mr. Rabbit, if you'd like.
And my final question to Mr. Cato would just be, is the testimony you offered this evening to a reasonable degree of engineering certainty?
Yes.
Okay. He may not be able to sit down yet. Staff, do you want to direct any questions?
No, not at this time,
Okay.
I think they covered it.
All right, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this? No?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Yes, please.
The street lighting plan, is that in compliance with the new DEM permit?
As far as
Good question.
dark sky compliance and all
Correct.
that? Yes.
It is?
Yep.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, I didn't want to interrupt, but I just want to let you know, I also have Mr. Rabideau here that will be testifying.
Okay. Good.
Yeah,
So
we
we'll
should,
hope. then
we
we'll
should wait,
Wait for public, I agree.
comment until
I agree.
they put on there.
All right. Want to comment,
Thank
Mr.
you very
Rabbit?
much. Mr. Rabideau?
Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last.
Sure, it's Scott Rabideau, that's spelled R-A-B-I-D-E-A-U.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Rabideau is well known to this board, as most boards. I would ask that you consider him an expert and put a motion on as such.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous? Mr. Rubin, welcome.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you again.
It's been a long time.
The floor is yours.
Since I was here last August, could you go to the wetland, just the overall, I think you have it right, just one. Just the wetlands, nothing else. Right.
What was that first one?
Right there. When I was here last August, we discussed the issue of the new wetland regulations and how it would affect this project. As Mr. Resnick pointed out, a permit that expired in September of 2023, we had started work on the project. The limits of disturbance were established and they were cleared to the limits of disturbance of the old permit. Under the old permit, they had different buffer zone requirements. So when we filed for the new freshwater wetland application, we were subject to the rules that took effect in July of 2022. Now, I believe this has all of the new buffer zones. So they're the wetlands, the magenta are the buffer zones that are required under the new wetland regulations. Basically, they went from 50 feet to 75 feet on the larger wetlands. These small isolated wetlands had, I'm sorry, this one right here, had no buffer zone under the old rules, and now they have a 25-foot buffer zone in that location. Stream that goes through the stone fort underneath the existing cart path had a 100-foot jurisdictional wetland under the old rules, and it has a 100-foot buffer zone under these rules. We did identify vernal pools. Vernal pools under the new rules get a 100-foot buffer zone, so you can see on this one, The 100-foot buffer zone extends out from the vernal pool and provides more buffering area than just the 75-foot that's off the wetland itself. So that's just, as an overview, some of the changes that were in effect under the new wetland regulations. Submitting this application anew to the Department of Environmental Management required that all of the wetland delineation flags be on site so that the department could check them out. We had two options. I could have done a new delineation on this property, or we could have had the surveyor for Millstone put back all of the wetland flags that were on the original plan that the DEM approved as a wetland verification in 2015. We chose the latter. So the wetland flags that are represented on this plan were those that DEM approved in 2015 and also were on the DEM insignificant alteration permit from 2017. So that there have been no changes in the area of the wetland that are represented on this plan that is currently before you. And the DEM issued a new permit based on the same wetland areas. And I point that out because, as Dr. O'Neill pointed out, this site can get wet. The application was submitted to DEM on March 1st of 2024. Even though we're in this wonderfully difficult drought right now, you may recall that January, February, and March of 2024, we had almost 12 inches of rain. It was record rain for those 3 months. DEM went out and inspected this site in April. So they saw this site at its wettest. And no new wetlands were identified during the review, and no changes were required to the wetland delineation or the buffer zones that we showed on the plan that were represented to the department. So I figured I would lay that groundwork. As far as the new wetland application, my involvement was to assist Millstone with the preparation and the submission of the actual application itself. Under the new wetland rules, we now are required to document and respond to the 6 variants, or the 6 standards that are in the regulations. And if you can't meet any of the standards, then you're required to seek a variance, similar to a zoning variance. In this case, there were standards we could not meet. We were looking for relief from the buffer zone, and we were looking for relief from the setback standards. And we also had a wetland crossing over the stream, which Mr. Cato spoke about. We can go to the actual plan now, and I can use that. There you go. So, obviously, as Ben pointed out, there's a stone ford there. We're putting a 15-foot arch culvert there. That's the one wetland crossing. So we didn't meet the standard. We were altering a wetland as part of this application, so we needed a variance. Under the new rules, when you seek a variance now, you have to respond to the 7 variance criteria in writing, similar to the zoning board here in the development criteria. I wrote that report, responded to each of those criteria, provided a full impact minimization and avoidance report, provided the mitigation measures and the assessment of the mitigation measures that were included in the project design. That was submitted to the department. We did receive 1 round of comments. I believe it was April 30th of 2024. I assisted Mr. Cato with the response to those comments, and then the department issued the permit in October, in which Mr. Resnick pointed out we satisfied the variance criteria, and they issued a permit for it's now called a freshwater wetland permit with variances. I think the important thing to realize is this did not rise to the level of a significant alteration. Had the department felt we didn't meet the variance criteria, we wouldn't have received a denial. We would have received a letter from the DEM that stated, you don't meet the variance criteria, we feel this is a significant alteration, and you now have to submit an application for a significant alteration. That did not happen in this instance. We met the criteria. We've obviously provided appropriate avoidance and minimization, and along with the mitigation we're proposing, the department felt that it qualified for the permit, and we received the permit. Glad to answer any questions.
Dr. O'Neill, questions? No. Mr. Riley? I do not. I think DEM's report is very thorough. I appreciate staff. Anything?
No.
You? Thank you.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I would just ask that, Mr. Rabida, the testimony you've offered tonight is to a reasonable degree of certainty in your expertise as a wetland biologist.
It is.
Thank you.
I have a redirect to you, Council. Again, just something to discuss with your client. In the HOA, I mean, one of the concerns I have, especially with the densities around it and with the sensitivities of the wetlands here, owner occupied, I'm not worried. HOA clause as far as renting, I mean, we're hoping that these are family homes year-round. Again, a discussion with your client.
Again, it's something that we will certainly discuss. I will say though, for the record on that one, as compared to some of the other requests, it really can have a major effect on marketability of the project, and they're not gonna be the ultimate users. The market at the time is gonna really call for the sale. But we're gonna discuss it.
Also, I think we've discussed this in different circumstances.
Yeah, we have.
It's very, virtually impossible
To enforce.
to get financing with,
Yeah.
with a restriction
I agree.
like that.
I know, but I still keep
And-
open.
And impossible to enforce.
Yeah, I'll still keep
I
banging
would-
my head.
I would advise against that.
Council, it keeps me in line, and I appreciate that. Any chance you want to make one of these affordable? Not looking for an answer on that. Do we have any comments?
The town council asked us that when they threw us out of the sewer situation,
Rupert?
which was interesting.
So another sort of similar question. The stone walls and the property, would your client be willing to add them to the conservation easement as far as a protectiveness? It's pretty much written as a environmental protection, and it
I
seems.
think we have a statute on that now anyway.
For the most part, the stone walls are well within the conservation easement.
Right.
The only place that we would be altering the stone wall is to get a driveway through.
Well, that's what I was saying, could we add a clause to the conservation easement that points to the stone walls being protected as part of the conservation easement?
That's something we can certainly discuss and look at it, so long as it's not an issue with access or constructability, certainly something that we will entertain. And I can have answers for the board on each of these potential conditions, and I'll do it by way of a letter. I'll do it by way of a letter before the next hearing.
And I mean, the conservation easements on areas that aren't for access and not for development, so.
Very good, very happy to consider it, thank you.
Rupert, we had one of those in Joe Paglia's flat.
Yeah, we did.
So we have those,
Right.
that language in another plat, in another
And
plat.
Okay.
And the stone walls, they had to disturb the rebuilt in places, so we kept it.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might, if Steve wants to present us with some language that's been used in the
Yeah,
past, we'd be
I
happy
have
to
it.
look at it.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Happy to look at it,
All right.
absolutely.
Council, I'm going to open it up to the public if you have.
I just want to make one more
Please.
comment about the HOA documents of the
Yeah.
conservation easement. We are more than willing to take staff's request and to incorporate that. I just want to make sure, because that product, the HOA and the conservation easement, it went through many drafts. I was not even the original architect of it, God bless his soul. I think Matt Callahan was the original architect. There's been a lot of back and forths. My understanding, based off of the staff report, was other than these requests, that we did come to a place where staff was happy with the HOA, they were happy with the conservation easement, how it incorporated the green belt. I just want to make sure that anything that we're changing now, that I've got all the issues, and that's how I
Well,
understand it.
and the expectation of this board is in the end, you're going to discuss this with staff and come to it. So-
Very good.
Well, yeah, so I think the master plan findings, I think, had pretty clear language that the board had the ability to review the HOA and conservation easement, so. we
As
have-
it always
we have-
is, as it always is, and I just, it went through so many drafts, because it was a more complex document than we normally do in these situations.
So,
So I'm sorry, go
So,
ahead.
yeah, so related to that, there's no baseline documentation for the conservation easement, and I think that needs to be added, baseline documentation prepared by conservation biologists with
Yeah, good
experience
point.
doing baseline documentation for conservation easements, because it's unenforceable without a baseline document.
Yeah.
So.
And that was a reporting requirement that we had worked on, and I think had come to an agreement on that part. That's a good point. And
And then-
obviously, that's something we can,
And there's a provision that was in the zoning board decision related to the HOA that needs to be added as well.
I remember that.
A requirement for maintenance of pervious pavement with schedule. It was in the June 18, 2020 zoning decision on page 7, item 5.
Yeah, I think we've already touched base on that in this meeting too, so,
Okay.
very good.
nice. It's nice that we're on board with each other.
Sorry.
Council, mind if I open it up to the public?
Oh, please do, thank you.
Do we have anybody here that would like to talk on this? Raise your hand, don't be shy, we don't bite, we take little bites. Yes, can you please come up and identify yourself, please?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last.
Jane Warren, W-A-R-R-E-N.
Thank you.
My question is, I live right next door, so where 5 is, that would be in my backyard. And the question and the concern of everyone in the neighborhood is, will this become more rentals? So my question is, what is the intention of the owner? Do they intend to develop this or sell off lots, or what are you proposing? We're looking, and I know I've discussed this with you previously, about assurances that this will not become more rentals like Eastwood Look and like Alexander, which is to the right of us.
As I mentioned, and Mr. Chairman, who also brought up a similar issue, it is something that I will discuss with my client in good faith based off of the issues that have been raised. There are issues with that. There's a lot of issues with that. Solicitor just pointed out one issue, and just genuinely the issue of this. In Narragansett, amongst probably many of the people here in the audience this evening, you don't have a prohibition on renting. You don't have a prohibition on your property in that manner, and it does have a massive impact on value. And at the end of the day, these gentlemen are developers. They're good developers, but the market is going to determine whether they're rented, whether they're sold, who builds them, etc. And at this point, there's really not a decision made on that. I mean, we all know that we're living in a very viable and healthy market right now, but who knows? So it really is based off of market forces, and there's just, in my opinion, I say this respectfully, there's just no legal way to force this developer to encumber their property in that manner and to say we're going to give up a bundle of sticks that we enjoy like any other property owner. So at this time, while we will discuss it along with the other conditions, I have to be candid to the community and the board. It is unlikely that we would agree to that.
Okay, thank you.
But you didn't answer my question, whether you intend to develop it or whether you're selling these lots off.
I did answer, I don't know, because the developer doesn't know right now. It's gonna be based on the market. They've got experience developing, they've got experience constructing. It's just a question of what the market will yield at the time that we're ready to sell these lots. And we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We still have a final application. We still have a lot of engineering that needs to be done. And I can tell you that this has been a very costly endeavor. This development has been going on for 6 years. It's one of the longest developments that I would suggest that Narragansett has on its agendas right now. It's an old development, so we're not going to commit to that right now, but I understand the point, and I'll discuss it with my client.
Well, the point is that it's a beautiful area and we just don't want it to become, you know, another College Street.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you my experience. I spent a lot of
That's my
time
point.
in Newport. There's short-term renters that behave wonderfully. They're families. And there are also bad apples, just like there's homeowners that are bad apples. So, I mean, the character of the person does not necessarily equate with the form of tenancy. You can have a bad owner and a bad renter, you can have a great renter. And just because somebody's taking a vacation for a couple days does not mean that it's gonna turn into what's been popularized, you know, throughout the state is unfortunate things that have happened because of short-term rentals. So we're not gonna consider it this time. We're not gonna agree to it this time, but we're gonna consider everything that's been put on the record today.
Thank you, Council. Council, I want to thank you for answering the question. It's not a typical thing, so usually this is just comments. So I thank Council for doing that, but I don't want these to turn into conversations. Anybody else like to make another comment?
I would.
Please, sir. Take the podium. Swear him in, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help
I
you
do.
God? Please state your name and spell your last.
Thomas Callahan, Callahan.
Thank you.
I live at 26 Baltimore Avenue, which is in the area just to the east of this proposed development. We're in the watershed of a permanent stream that kind of empties out of the wetlands, and that goes through the yard of the person next to our house.
Tom, could you just speak up a little bit?
I'll try the
If
best.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
I was going to say the same thing.
I'll try the best I can.
You need to fill the room this time because
There's
your
no
back is to
microphone.
a lot of people.
There's no microphone. So what I hope to do is just review the conditions of the prior approvals. This, where we stand today, is subject to a set of conditions that were embedded in both the planning board's approval in 2018 and the zoning board's approval in 2020. I'd like to share a few remarks and questions regarding the staff's recommendation memo. I want to quickly review the headlines of my prior written testimony, which is in your board package tonight, and I have some closing remarks. So this is 7 years, multiple hearings, master plan, appeal of the master plan, to the zoning board for variances, town council for sewer, back here for preliminary, plan approval. In this room, I'm probably the only person with the exception of Doc, with the exception of two consultants for the applicant, with Steve and Jill, and have been here for the entire ride. So let me just say, let me review what I think are 7 or 8 conditions that are tied to either the preliminary approval or the master plan approval. From the master plan on page 2, this planning board would have the right in its decision to accept, reject, amend the conservation easement thereto. And the applicant must understand that the planning board, not the staff, the planning board will have the right, and to the extent that we don't have the right, or are not satisfied with the document as it's presented, the board retains the right to vote against approval of the project at preliminary plan. It's a kind of an extraordinary condition that was embedded in the approval because of the sensitivity of the natural resources in the wetlands of the lot. Page 4 of that same memo, May 8th memo, provision number 5, a fee in lieu is presented. They need to have a fee in lieu presented at preliminary stage, and it's either accepted or revised to the satisfaction of the board. Page 4, number 8, the applicant must submit an estimate for the road construction and other infrastructure improvements to be used for determining the surety requirements. As I think that's already been talked about a little bit tonight. I would say you have noticed already the DPW staff's comment with respect to the cross-section that's been proposed by the applicant is not compliant with town specs at this moment in time. In page 4, number 12, the conservation easement is consistent with the safety zones described in the applicant's April 3rd, 2017 map. The language is clear and unambiguous. I'm not seeing a copy of the April 2017 map in quite some time. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, but you might want to see it. Be sure that, in fact, what's being proposed for the conservation, the area to be covered by the conservation easement is in fact consistent with that map. With respect to page 5, number 15, the easements and the homeowners association documents must be presented at preliminary to the satisfaction of the board. In other words, this board has to make a determination at preliminary whether you're satisfied with those two documents as a condition of approval. The zoning board in June of 2020, on page 7, number 7, no site work can begin until this project's been reviewed and approved and road construction permit has been issued by DPW. In fact, those permits have not been yet secured, even though road construction has started on the site. How do we know road construction has started on the site? The applicant, in its application to DEM, and Mr. Rabideau's report to DEM on page, hang on for a minute, bear with me. Plan B. On page 3, paragraph 2, third paragraph, the road base for the approved cul-de-sac has been roughed in. That is the testimony offered by the applicant's own expert. Seems to me that it's premature for this board to actually act on any application for which a town permit, which was required as before road construction could start, has not been secured. And it's clear that if you look at the Narragansett DPW's staff comments, that they note that those permits have not been received. I would argue that one of the things you might consider is it might be premature for you to be considering this until those permits have been received. And then the zoning board on page 7, number 5, says a maintenance schedule for each of the pervious driveways shall be required in the homeowners association codes, covenants, and restrictions document. That document, they are not covered in the document as it currently exists today. My presumption is that is not ready for approval, at least for tonight's meeting. So let's move on to the proposed conservation agreement, homeowners documents, guarantee requirements that are part of the applicant's materials that are submitted tonight. As I said in my testimony that I offered back in August of last year, I would strengthen the provisions of the proposed conservation agreement. Mr. Rupert had picked up the lack of a baseline report for this area, the need for a baseline report in order to effectively understand what you've actually started with and what you're measuring against going forward. So I would, if the planning board is inclined to approve the applicant's preliminary application, it should first require the applicant to add the following requirements to the conservation easements provisions as a condition of approval. Prepare and submit for approval a properly scoped baseline report prior to the execution of the easement. In the event seasonal conditions preclude the applicant from completing a full baseline documentation, the developer and the town may sign a schedule for finalizing the full report. Conduct appropriately timed annual surveys of the site's vernal pool areas to track the health, vitality, resilience of amphibians, beginning at the onset of construction and concluding 5 years after the project is built out. The applicant has made the case over the course of the last 7 years that this will have no adverse impact on the wetlands or the the other wildlife life that inhabits the wetlands. We should use this as an opportunity to, in fact, ask the homeowners association, when they do their annual review of the vernal pools, to essentially include a review of the health of the wetlands. At the last meeting, we had suggested that we add fertilizers to section 3C of the homeowners agreement. I think the applicant agreed to that, but it's not yet embodied in the agreement. And I would, and again, something that was picked up a little earlier, include a scope and schedule for maintaining the proposed pervious driveways in the HOA as required in the condition 5 of the zoning board's special use permit. I think the staff suggestion to have the applicant certify the extent of the wetlands has not changed, is a good one. I think Mr. Abdu addressed that tonight by essentially saying, look, the wetland flags have stayed where they are. I think that's probably a good issue. Protecting the stone walls is brought up, and I think that's a good addition to the conservation easement. I just would ask, on redirect, there's a couple questions I'd like to ask you to ask the applicant. So I'm asking these questions through you. May I borrow somebody's pointer? Thank you. So, one of the things that the applicant was asked to do as part of a condition of master plan approval was to come back with a report on vernal pools 4 and 6, and whether 6 was flowing or not, and whether 4 was actually deemed to be a vernal pool or not. They came back with their report, but what's most interesting to me is there's vernal pool 1, vernal pool 2, vernal pool 3, vernal pool 6. Vernal pool 5, which is right here, is no longer there. Now, this was presented to DEM. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I don't understand what it is. My sense is that there is in fact a vernal pool that's embedded in a larger wetland area here, is what we're going to hear, but we should understand why this is no longer considered a vernal pool and what implications it has for the buffer requirements with respect to this. The second thing we ought to understand is if you look at the applicant's application for stormwater construction permit and the wetlands permit, the Part D project information says, will the project alter the buffer zone? The answer is yes. By what amount? 56,540 square feet, which is a little more than an acre and a half, excuse me, an acre and a third. So, again, it's not clear to me what additional buffer area is essentially the equivalent of 56,000 square feet, or if that's even the proper way to interpret it. But I do think it's worthy of the board's attention to figure out what the answers to those questions are. With respect to the homeowners association agreement, again, this is a critical document, was conceived to be a critical document for this, for the approval, for the tentative approvals that this has received so far. And so, what I would say is the following. As I mentioned earlier, fertilizer is still not included in the document. There should be an annual inspection, maintenance, of the repair. There should be a provision that covers the annual inspection, maintenance, and repair of the on-site water treatment systems. As we said, that's a sensitive area. We're going to have 5 of those, potentially 5 of them in that area. We want to be sure that they're properly inspected and maintained on an annual basis to protect the wetlands there. You need to add the driveway maintenance schedule, which we've talked about before. I think this was a reference to what Jill mentioned earlier. If you look at condition 25 of the DEM approval, it has, it limits the road and driveway lighting. So it's not only just the road lamps here, but in terms of this driveway here, any lighting that would be included on this, in this thing, there should be a provision that basically alerts the homeowners that there are limitations to what can be done now. With respect to the financial guarantee requirements, I will simply say the following. If I can find it. At master plan, the applicant testified that they've never posted a bond for another road or had experience developing a road of 300 yards or more. Now, it's been 7 years since that period of time. Maybe they have some additional experience that might be worth the board exploring with them. But if that continues to be the case, then given their inexperience, I know they've adjusted the amount, but it's not clear yet whether or not they've accounted for when this road will actually be built and the escalation between now and then as part of their estimate. That given their inexperience, you should err on the side of caution, require the full 120% rather than the amount of the limited amount of the approval of the amount that you have under section 7C appendix B of the zoning ordinance. And then section 5C also requires the applicant to provide a maintenance guarantee in the amount of 10% of all the improvements. Given the environmental sensitivity of the site and developers' acknowledged inexperience in completing the road, stormwater, and other site improvements, the scale anticipated at the site, the board should continue extending the annual maintenance to the full amount, the guarantee. On the issue of adding a prohibition limitation rentals to the homeowners association agreement, I've heard, I understand, I've heard your argument. I will say this: if the board looks at Manning Drive, which is the road which is there an area map as part of this? No? Okay, so Point Judith Road runs right along here. Manning Drive comes basically here, T-bones at Jake's Way, and that area.
Correct.
T-bones down to Jake's Way down here. That area was developed by Jim Manning, former chair of the zoning board. Mr. Manning basically has as part of their homeowners agreement, has a limitation that anyone who rents their home the minimum length of the rental must be for 18 months. They do that essentially to preclude short-term rentals, academic rentals, things of that nature. And instead of that being seen by Mr. Manning and his residents over here as a potential diminution of their value, they actually see it as something that enhances the value of their property. So there are at least 2 or 3 points of view. I know Steve might have some issues with respect to it legally, but there are at least 2 or 3 different points of view in terms of whether or not that's something that should be considered or not. And I'll tell you why I think that might be important. So let me come to a close here. Ryan, could you put up sheet 1? Is there sheet 1 there? Okay. Yeah, that. Go back to there. What's peculiar about this picture? This is peculiar about this picture. This is essentially an intrusion into a highly sensitive environmental area, both of wetlands, a stream, a wetland to the south, and upland area that essentially is habitat, is off-season habitat, if you will, when they're not breeding in vernal pools for amphibians. And from the beginning, this particular piece has been what has taken this so long to get done. So where do we start? We started with a comprehensive plan. We started at a meeting in 2017 with a comprehensive plan that said this area here is an area where we would encourage cluster development instead of single-family homes, and this is an area that would ideally would provide housing that's more affordable, right? And the language is interesting in the comp plan. The language isn't just that we would encourage it. It uses the word we will strongly encourage it. And I'm kind of scratching my head over the course of the last 7 years to see what we've all done to strongly encourage a different housing layout that would protect this area up here. So where have we ended up? Well, we've got a 5-lot conventional subdivision that, according to the condominium documents, proposed condominium documents, each of the houses cannot be less than 3,000 square feet. All right? So at testimony at the initial hearing back in December of 2017, The applicant's owners testified that they hoped these houses would cost $1 million or more. We're gonna get a payment in lieu of open space, a dedicated open space. And it's gonna be a paltry sum for the town to basically go about its business, to try to find open space someplace else. And in some way, place or form, replace this particular area that's gonna be developed. And we're doing it by a developer who's built and operated large, single-family, short-term rental properties in Narragansett over the course of the last 7 years. We got here by relying on the opinion of paid experts who have cavalierly flaunted both DEM's original permit by basically intruding on the limits of disturbance, on the town of Narragansett's permit requirements in terms of opening up the road without seeking a road permit. And the situation borders, in my judgment, on nothing short of pathetic. So if I were you, what I would urge you to do is strengthen the homeowner association documents, as we've talked about, strengthen the protections in the easements, protect the town financially by requiring a robust bond requirements, make sure everything that's done here is, if it gets done, is in strict conformance and not general conformance of, usually strict conformance standards. And you might even, as the planning board suggested at one point in time, if you couldn't get it done, consider reducing the density. So with that, I'll finish my testimony, happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions from the board? Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to the development?
Oops.
Council? Give you, staff, anything you want to add?
Not at this moment.
Council, I'll give you the floor.
Mr. Chairman, obviously, as I said, we're going to take into account all of the conditions that have been requested, all the comments by the board and the neighborhood. You'll note that we have a stenograph here today. We'll be providing a transcript to staff. We'll have it, and we'll work through all of the issues that have been brought up. I would say, with respect to Mr. Callahan and his testimony this evening, first of all, he's revisiting the master plan approval for this project. This master plan was granted, it's approved, they've got a vested right. The comp plan that he's referencing, the comprehensive plan he's referencing, was not the comprehensive plan language at the time that this application was filed. And so some of this, and quite a bit of the testimony, is asking you to look at issues that are foreclosed as a vested right. The second issue is, we understand that this board and the community is interested in environmental issues, in the wetland permits that we obtained, but we did so. We did so with one of the best experts in the state, and we got an approval for RIDEM, and it's their jurisdiction. And so while we respect the board's authority and we want to present so that there's a full understanding, there are some jurisdictional quagmires that Mr. Callahan is asking you to walk into. And essentially, he's asking you to improperly expand the jurisdiction of this board into RIDEM's area of jurisdiction. And I will, in a more formal way, respond to some of those items before our next meeting, in addition to the conditions that we're going to discuss and get back to you on. But as recently as this June 2024, there was a codification of the Zoning Enabling Act, which came after a decision of the Superior Court. I believe Attorney Bill Landry was the plaintiff in that matter, that further doubles down on the concept that it is not the place of the town, a zoning board, a planning board, I mean no disrespect, to start talking about buffering and setback requirements, etc., as it relates to wetlands. And I'd be happy to provide you with that statute, but just the general concept is, while Mr. Callahan is obviously a very bright guy, he is asking you to make decisions that are not within your jurisdiction. And I can tell you that Mr. Callahan had more than an opportunity to communicate with RIDEM about these issues and about their review. I know that. I know that he was in constant communication with them, and I know that through the civil engineer. And the reason why I say that, he has that right. But he knew what the appropriate forum was, and now he's asking you to expand your jurisdiction. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for a point of clarification, we are under the old subdivision regulations, so I'm sure the board knows that, but for everyone in the room, we're under the old subdivision regulations. I just want to read a couple sentences to you to hopefully clarify why in fact you're looking at a conventional subdivision and not a cluster subdivision. Because the ordinance at that time, the subdivision regulations at the time said residential cluster developments are to be allowed by the planning board only when a subdivider can demonstrate to the board at the pre-application meeting that such a development would be a better use of land and more appropriate to the community than a conventional subdivision. So your regulations at the time required you to prove that a cluster was better. The good news is we fixed that in your new regulations, but at the time those were the regulations in place for this project.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because before we got to the end of this, I was going to mention it as I go back to 2017 when we first discussed this.
And you did discuss it, Dr. O'Neill. You absolutely discussed it.
We absolutely talked about clustering, and I don't know, since then, a number of people have said to us, why don't you cut, somehow twist the arm of that? This is America. The developer has rights. They didn't want to do cluster. They wanted to do individual sites. It was discussed. We discussed it very actively. In any case, just you already put it out on the record. These people are recording. But that's water, over the dam. So.
Sorry, any good?
So I just have a few, I know you talked about the conservation easement and the HOA being finalized, but I have not seen it. I had a chance to comment on it before now. And a couple points. One, and some of these are really a discussion with staff, but one is clarification. On page 1, it referenced plans, conservation easement plan, and plan showing the work within 100 feet of the wetlands. And I'm not sure if there's still the accurate plans to be referenced.
Thank you, Mr. Friday. That was one of my notes as well. That plan very well could be moot at this point.
Right.
And we would look at either removing it completely or updating it, because as we know, the buffers have changed and things are different now.
Right. And then and I think I talked about this the last time we talked about this subdivision, is making sure the conservation easement is marked on the land, on the property, so that it can be monitored. And then this is maybe a discussion with staff or with legal, and I don't think it has any, from your perspective, meaningful change in the conservation easement language. On page 1, the certification reviewed, right now it says by the tree warden, and I feel like maybe it should be a commission, whether it's the Conservation Commission, Tree Commission. And the same thing on point 3A says submitted to the town for review and approval prior to any work. I think it should say for review and approval by the Conservation Commission, Tree Commission. And there's not any specification there. And the biannual inspection right now is submitted to the town planning department. I think we should add that also to the Conservation Commission, Tree Commission, because so it doesn't change any submittal, just another group in the town gets it as well.
Yeah, and if I can pony on that, I think, if my memory serves me right, and I apologize, I'm a little tired tonight, in prior developments where we had maintenance for runoff systems and for roads, I believe we sent that to the town engineering department.
I'm sorry, the question again, Mr.
So where we've had HOAs report back their annual maintenance reports, I think that went to, did that go to the engineering department or DPW, I think it went to engineering.
I believe it went to engineering, I can confirm that.
In continuing on that, so there's an exceptions, applications for exceptions shall be made to the town of Narragansett through the administrative officer. I'm not sure, does that mean Jill? I'm not sure who that means, but again, I think it should be the Conservation Commission, Tree Commission. So that's the conservation easement amendments. The HOA amendments, these are just sort of belt and suspender or technical things. On page 3, number 5, outbuildings and accessories, I think we should add a sentence, no outbuildings or accessories shall be erected or placed in the area protected by the conservation easement. And I think a similar sentence should be added with the lawn ornaments. I think it's already in the rules, so that the folks that get the homeowners association, it's like clear to them. And I already talked about the requirement for maintenance of pervious surfaces. So question, does the homeowners association, are they responsible for maintenance of the streetlights?
It would be my presumption that that's in the document. It should be in the
I don't
document.
think it
I
is.
can't cite to a page,
Yeah, I don't
so
think,
we'll
I don't
take a
think
look
it
at
is.
that.
I don't think
It should
is.
be in there.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. I had one more question, it was in here, on the road, oil separation. What kind of a separation system are we running?
The system is it's called a dry swale
Yeah,
with pretreatment in a forebay,
okay.
With
With
retreatment and
in
what?
what's called a forebay,
Forebay.
F-O-R-E-B-A-Y, yes.
Do you want to explain that in English for us?
Sorry.
We're the only
You got both stenos.
Because we're the only two nodding, everybody else in the room is going, what in God's name are they talking about?
So, these are what we call BMPs, best management practices, that are spelled out in the Rhode Island DEM stormwater guidelines. The forebay the water goes into a forebay, which is basically a deeper hole where anything can settle out. Sand from sanding the roadway or oils would be settling out. The water then goes either over weirs or through different overflow structures, pipes and whatnot, into what's called a dry swale. And a dry swale is just that. It's a swale on the side of the road. It's grassed. That is dry, and the vegetation that is in that swale, when it gets hit with water, pulls the pollutants out of the water. So that's what it's designed to do. And then from there it goes into a detention system where it sits in a pond and is slowly metered out over time.
In the swale is vegetation?
Correct.
And that's what, do you spell out what type of vegetation, or is it just
Yes.
whatever grows?
No,
You have specific vegetation that cleans things up, that's it?
right. It's a grass, but yeah, it's a specific seed mix is on the plants.
Yep.
And then there's a maintenance procedure with that. And in how it is established, it's, the contractor is supposed to ensure that it's established before water gets into it. There's temporary measures that take place
Oh.
in the meantime.
That's why I want the inspection and maintenance and report back to the town. They're very effective, but they're also very sensitive. Okay. Council? I mean, we threw a lot at you, but if you look at it, it's kind of grouped. And, again, this is a preliminary, so we've got some homework to do.
Absolutely, thank you for all your comments, and as I said, we've got a good record of it, and I'll be going over it with my client. The experts will make the appropriate revisions, and my expectation is to get a letter to staff and the board with our position on all of these conditions, and to take a stab at finalizing the HOA document, the conservation easement. I'd like to try to get as much business done before the next hearing as possible.
And let me just get back to the restriction on Manning Drive. That's not a no rental restriction, that's a length of time
Right.
restriction.
Right.
And also, I would like to know whether that restriction was imposed by the town or imposed by the developer. Again, some developers may want, in my opinion, as a real estate attorney, sometimes restrictions are actually, again, add value to the property, but that would be something I would want you to know.
Right.
So I'll research that, but it wasn't a no rental restriction, it was just a length of time
Yeah.
If just very briefly to respond to that, we're gonna work with you on almost all comments we've received tonight. That's an illegal condition. It just is. And, you know, I don't wanna be fresh, but candidly, Mr. Callahan, if you'd like to buy the lot, it's for sale.
Great.
I'm not-
All right. Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. If their
Close the hearing.
fingers fall off, yeah, we have to close the
We
meeting.
got-
No, wait a
You're not gonna close the hearing,
No,
Mr. Chairman,
we're gonna
but you're gonna
continue.
motion, you're gonna
We're
continue to
motion.
a date certain.
Yeah, to what?
You're gonna continue to a date certain.
Yes. All right, and you have that date?
No,
No.
Heidi does.
It's December, I can tell you that.
It is December.
The, it is December 17th.
Okay, dynamite. All right, do I have a motion to continue the hearing till December 17th?
moved.
Seconded?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous. Council will see you in December.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have a
Good
good
evening
evening.
very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, so these other ladies can put their fingers back in.
They're done.
Have a nice night.
Well, I'm just waiting for your fingers to fall off.
Thank you.
I was right, we're live. We're reconvening the planning board meeting Tuesday, November 19th. We have a change in our comprehensive permit subdivisions, pre-application review, minor subdivision, 2-lot plat N-N, lot 2991 Boston Neck Road. Sullivan's have requested to postpone, and that has been granted. So it is off our agenda. So we're going to do a pre-application review, comprehensive permit, 4 units with 1 affordable, low moderate income. Unit plat 5, lot 40, 649 Point Judith Road, owner Farley and Gilmore. The property owners, Thomas Farley and David Gilmore, request a pre-application review of the affordable housing comprehensive permit development. They proposed on Assessor's Plat V, Lot 4. This is a lot of 4.9 acres in area and currently supports a single-family dwelling. They're proposing 4 units, all detached dwellings, with one of the units, 25%, proposed as a deed restricted for low and moderate income, buyer or renter. 3 dwellings are proposed at 954 square feet and footprint, and 1908 square foot footprint. The other dwelling is proposed at 878 square foot, and 1,700 gross foot. Each dwelling is shown with 160 square foot, I'm presuming a square foot deck. We noted that the floor plans indicate a covered front porch entrance, which is not shown in the plan. The applicant has not indicated what income range has been targeted. The site has slightly over 1 acre dry land. The remaining has been flagged as wetlands. The site plan proposed shows the wetland edge is mapped by Natural Resources Services, Inc. The proposed layout specifically incorporates the new CRMC wetlands. Other environmental constraints include location and high water table, B zone, 18 to 36 inch water depths. Relief required includes density, 3 units of the 4 requested, 15 acre minimum for cluster development in an R80. They're requesting 10.8. That is a change of 28%. Relief, setback variance is side from the northwest building 6 feet, southwest building 29 feet, northeast building 6 feet, southeast building 23.5. Is that accurate?
That is all accurate.
There are other things, but they'll come out, so if you could state your name and your role in this, we'd appreciate that.
Certainly. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Michael Zavalia. I'm a registered professional engineer, Commonwealth Engineers and Consultants. And I'm here tonight on behalf of our clients, David Gilmore and Tom Farrelly, who are here in the audience as well. And we have presented this project previously back in March. At that time, it was proposed to be an 8-unit, 4-duplex development. And it had similar zoning relief as far as the density was concerned, the setbacks were concerned. And at the time, I believe it was the chairman offered some sage advice. When you have over 2 variance relief requests, you may need to rethink the project a little bit. So our clients took that to heart. We went back and reviewed the project, and that's an existing conditions plan. And that is the current proposed conditions plan. So, recognizing that the density seems to be the issue of greatest concern, our clients have proposed to reduce the number of units from 8 to 4 and provide one of those 4 units as affordable housing. The remainder of the site plan has changed slightly to accommodate the different shapes of the proposed dwellings. The driveway's a little bit different. The turnaround, the guest parking. The location of the units is pretty close to what it was originally proposed to be, so the setback relief would be comparable. Once we had that plan, we submitted it to CRMC for a preliminary determination, because this lot falls into the Salt Ponds Special Area Management Plan area.
This land is identified as lands beyond carrying capacity, I think is the term that they use. What that means is that CRMC can restrict the project to only what is allowed strictly by the zoning in effect. And with R80 zoning, it would be a single dwelling unit. So we wanted to know whether CRMC would accept higher density than that for the project. We also wanted to know what their feelings would be on the proposed buffer restoration. We had originally offered 40-foot buffer restoration. Their response to our application was that if we provide 55 feet of buffer restoration, and then the applicable setbacks, 20 foot for the primary structures, 5 foot for accessory, that would satisfy the requirements of the SAM plan, and we would be able to do the increased density. So that preliminary determination was issued, at which point we decided it would be wise to bring it back before the board to solicit your input again on the reduced density and the general premise of the project before we take the next step into the more detailed nuts and bolts design. So that is what we're hoping to hear tonight. Happy to answer any questions that I can. And again, any kind of feedback that you can give us as far as the comfort level that when we come back for preliminary, the project would be approved.
I usually defer to the board first, but I have a point of information, and I'm not necessarily looking for an answer, but the waiver was given for the sewer hookup based on the fact that there were going to be 4 affordable units. And we do work and bend over backwards for affordable units. Those are no longer there. So my question then is the waiver null and void? And do they gotta revisit this request to hook up?
So the last iteration was 8 units total, 3 of them were affordable.
3 rather, I'm sorry, yeah,
Mhm.
3. Now we're down to 1.
And now they've reduced the density by half, and they're down to 1, which still complies with the comprehensive permit
Mm-hmm.
application. I believe the engineer, if you look at the notes, the engineer said you could do either or. They did receive, my understanding is they did receive the sewer policy approval based on the number of, because they were providing multiple, and as you see there, they were providing multiple affordable dwelling units.
Yeah, I mean, that's my concern here, because that was the flavor of it, and again, we, as a community, we try to bend over backwards for affordable units, God knows we need them, but we've gone from 3 to 1, so they dissipated. So my question then is, if that waiver was predicated on the good faith that there would be 3 affordable, and now there's only 1 affordable, is that agreement still in play?
So at this stage, I would suggest, since it's pre-application, I would suggest that the applicant seek the advice of the town solicitor.
Okay.
Because it wouldn't be me anyway.
No, and I'm not asking for an answer here, I'm just putting it on the table
Because the town council, obviously it gives the sewer permits, and, one argument is, well, it's less. And the other argument is, well, you only got it because of the amount. So, I mean, I think it would be prudent for the applicant to at least get a written decision or written opinion from the town solicitor regarding this issue.
And the only reason why I bring it up is because it's very clear in the documents that they were given it because of those 3 units.
Yeah, no, and I just think it would be prudent to ask.
Okay.
Because you don't want us to give the approval.
No.
And then they go to the sewer department and they say no.
Exactly, exactly. So I apologize to the board, I usually defer to you guys first, but I wanted that answer. Doc, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I guess you already touched on it. The idea of going from 3 units to 1 unit is obviously interesting. You may not be able to say, is that because of the market out there? These would sell better because they're single units? Why did you go down from the 8 down to 4?
Because we got the strong sense that 8 units and that density was deemed to be excessive on this lot. And so we were trying to reduce the density of the units. I can't speak to the market relative to duplex units and more of them relative versus single family. Tom is here, and I think he's doing some of the financials on the project, so I don't want to say something that is not factual as far as the valuation
Yeah.
of the units.
If I remember, I believe parking with the 8 units,
Yeah,
parking was an
there was a
issue.
huge issue.
There was not enough parking.
No,
Yeah.
good point.
There was a couple other.
Right, and the wetlands, I believe, were
The
different,
wetlands.
they couldn't,
Yeah.
the buffer wasn't as large.
And just to put a period on that, we will certainly approach the town solicitor regarding the applicability of the sewer waiver
Okay.
in light of the deduction.
I think the, appearance-wise, they're very attractive. Question I would ask, this, many developers is, how can you tell which one is affordable?
Well, you can't.
That's the idea.
It's the right answer. Thank you. No, it's the right answer.
It is right.
And what I would say, I think, is that touches on something that goes to the percentage of units that we can offer as affordable. The developers who are doing these projects don't have the option of putting in half as good a unit as an affordable unit. The standards require them to put in generally comparable units. There can be slight differences, some of the finishes in the units, but they can't put a substandard unit, call it affordable, and make a project economically viable. The units that they are selling as affordable are still going to cost comparable amount to the other units, and that's why the economics sometimes don't work. In a perfect world, the developer could offer 50%, they could give 2 affordable units. Unfortunately, the numbers don't work economically to support that. And that's why we end up at the 25%.
Not to belabor the point, but beautiful, huge open area along Ocean Road. They've been before us, I don't know how many times, a dozen, I don't know, but in any case. So one of their proposals, they were gonna put up this whole group of very high-end condominium overlooking the water and everything. And the reason they were gonna put up that many was they were gonna introduce affordable housing, but they're gonna be in the back.
Mhm.
We rejected it on the basis, and our wonderful friends, they don't exist anymore, it's called Shed. The Providence Group, Shed, is that their name, or Shed?
Chad.
They don't
No,
exist
it's
anymore, and they overturned us. But in that situation, we discussed that specifically. It was one of those, don't put those people, in the back, because that's not the concept of affordable housing.
No, it's not.
But obviously, that particular developer, in any case, that's history.
Yeah, the guidance is that the affordable units are supposed to be distributed relatively evenly throughout whatever the development is.
Absolutely.
I think to make the argument that there's no bad spot in this relatively modest development, whichever one of the units would be equally appealing, I think.
Sure.
Jerry?
Yeah, did you consider 2 duplexes as opposed to 4 single units to make more room and ease the variances that you need?
We did not consider 2 duplexes for this unit count. With that said, 2 duplexes would fit on the lot, and it might offer some reconfiguration, but that goes back to and that's where I don't have a good answer that I want to offer as far as the marketability and the values of duplex units versus single-family detached. So that could be a part of the calculus.
But you would agree that it would alleviate,
What zone is this?
No, it's our board.
R80.
R80. So that's it. The other question I have is on the homeowners association. Are there going to be restrictions in the homeowners association for rentals? My concern is, someone with enough money could come in and buy all 4 units and have quite a business.
So restrictions as far as how the units would be
Rented
rented versus owned and.
and occupied, no rentals.
Well, the
I don't know what their
affordable,
intention is.
the affordable can have it, would be restricted,
But, okay.
so.
Anything can be restricted if they want to do it.
But that was another question that I had, can they sublet an affordable home and they can't, you're saying?
Do you want the legal answer or the practical answer? The legal answer is
no.
you're not allowed to
Mm-hmm.
under the restrictions of how you buy the property. The practical answer is, to my knowledge, there hasn't been the enforcement of one property in the state of Rhode Island where someone comes in and rents out an affordable unit because the state of Rhode Island, the jurisdiction on who enforces it, although there's different town monitoring agencies, you know, Narragansett does it, Rhode Island Housing does it, you never hear of those entities coming in and kicking out a renter.
Why? You know,
I
can you answer that? It's okay.
I don't set state
Okay.
policy.
Eviction's not easy.
The other question I had is wouldn't it help to move that curb cut into the center instead of keeping that top curb cut? You know what I mean?
So instead of using the existing driveway curb cut, closing both and putting a new one in the center?
Yes. Because then the drive would be straight in, it would open up more space. I think it would add cost. Is that the reason why you kept it where it is?
There's that, it would be, DOT currently has a curb cut there, so basically it's not something new where we have any other issues, but I don't see sight distance out here as an issue at all, so moving it between the two driveways, I don't think would be an issue with DOT. The other thing though that this does allow us to do is create that kind of gentle sweep and vegetation on both sides, so that the view from the road is a little bit.
That's a point well taken. That's all I have.
Yeah, so sort of following up on the sewer permit, the way I read the staff comments on this is that you'll need to look at, evaluate it for septic now?
No.
Okay, that's what I read it. Maybe I
Well,
read it wrong. And then-
What I would say in response to that is
Yeah.
that if we can't connect to the sewer, the project goes away. This site will not support more than one unit, practically speaking, on a septic system. There just isn't room.
And then, the other note I saw, is, requirement to check the Manning sewer line to see if it can accommodate a number of units.
We would have to do an analysis of that line and verify that it has capacity to handle 4 more units at the point where we would be connecting.
So at what point do you do the analysis? You don't want to go too
We
far
do
down
the
the road.
analysis when we know if we have a reasonable chance of getting this project.
Okay, okay.
It's,
Um,
because that, you know, that investment of resources to get into the nitty gritty of the design, that does take time
Yep.
and money, so, if my clients don't have some comfort level that they're likely, again, I'm not asking the
Yep.
board by any means for anything definitive, but it's kind of that gray area, do we go forward at this point, or do we recalibrate to a different project,
Yeah.
so.
What, and then my last question is, if your clients would be willing to consider a conservation easement on the wetland areas?
We haven't spoken about that, so we can discuss it, I don't wanna commit the two of you to anything about that. What I would say is that it's everywhere, so practically speaking, there's relatively little value development-wise to them on that land.
Right.
So,
But it certainly would help protect it. We keep people off of it.
in theory, yes. Yep. I don't think we're gonna post a guard to keep people from walking through the wetlands,
No, I
but,
get it.
Right.
You through?
That's it, Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Callahan?
Advantage of going last is everyone has great ideas before we get here, so I'll just say 2 things. One is, I think Jerry's thought about duplex as opposed to 4 individuals is attractive to me in terms of trying to how the site sets up. I don't know from a marketability, you know, how that works, but at least when you came in last time out, you thought you could get market duplexes before, so I'll simply say that kind of frees up some things on its site that would make it a little bit, give you the ability to get the number of units that you're seeking to get without necessarily getting the kind of relief that you're looking to get on this. Having said that, if you lock up the back on conservation easement, then it makes, from my vantage point, the relief a little different question to wrestle with. The other thing I'll say is not all affordable housing is created equal, and I know you're not prepared to signal or commit in terms of what the AMI would be that you're shooting for, but shooting for an AMI, I see units that are heavily subsidized, and I suspect this is not going to be the case for this. But heavily subsidized units shooting for families with 30% of the annual the median, 40% of the median, and I've seen projects that are looking at 120%. And so it would be helpful, you know, in terms of how much trade there is in, at least in my mind, is set by kind of what bogey you're trying to hit.
My clients have had discussions with state housing, and we've started the process. It's an involved process, and we're still working through it. So what I would say is, before we come back, we would attempt to provide that information to the planning department.
From my vantage point, something 80 or lower is a little bit, I mean, it's more attractive to me than something that's going 80 to 120, you know, for what it's worth. And again, the thought process is these would be for sale, not rental?
Yes.
All right, so I think that goes back to prior question related to the HOA and restrictions on ownership versus rental.
And just because you were here for, I think, the prior conversation, it's not necessary, if it's structured in a way that the condo association is saying there's a, that if you're going to rent, you have to rent for more than, let's say, 12 or 18-month period of time. That makes it difficult for that to become an academic rental, or short-term rental, or something like that. I think that's might be the way to think about it.
Or lease as opposed to short-term rental, sort of thing,
Right, exactly.
set term.
Exactly. Somebody wants to go to Florida or Arizona, take a year trip around the world, and 12, 18 months makes sense. But something there's no limitation on that. And again, this is to the point that was made in the prior conversation. We can't impose it, but the condo association certainly could propose it. And it would probably, at least with me, would find a receptive ear.
These discussions would certainly take place through the design process.
Correct.
And when we come back with the preliminary submission, we would have, I would assume, draft HOA documents that would articulate those arrangements.
Or at least a term sheet.
I'll redirect. Okay.
I'm done.
Okay. Appreciate that, you know, this is a conversation. I mean, we're still preliminary here. The fact that you listened to us and the concerns about parking and runoff and all of that, and went down to that you're willing to have a conversation of, you know, whether it's duplex or detached, and obviously the market's going to decide that. But you're willing to look at it. I'm just going back over what everybody else has said. Some of it is what I've already looked at. The affordable range, what are you considering? Conservation easement on the wetland area. Also, a big thing for me on these HOAs is who's responsible for maintaining the road, the runoff system, all of that. And so the HOA is going to have to look at those covenants as to inspection, maintenance, and reporting. And again, we, on other subdivisions, had developers, part of the HOA is that those reports, just a copy goes to the town engineer, just so that we know they're maintained and kept up. And we have two types of affordable in this town. One is legal, which you've taken the steps of, and I applaud you. The other is long-term rental. And we're trying to accommodate our teachers, firemen, families who have grown up here and want to maintain here. And again, echoing Mr. Callahan, we can't tell you what to do legally, and obviously you have to do what's financially prudent for you. But if you could look at a covenant within the HOA that says, okay, if you're going to rent, 18-month period or something like that, that's a long term. It creates, artificially creates an affordable home because the market is so drastically different from short-term rentals to long-term rentals. We appreciate that conversation.
And would it be fair to say you define as a long-term rental as something on that order 18 to 24 months?
Yeah, I would say. And again, you have to look at the market on that. I mean, you get to a point where it's so restrictive that people are like, yeah, I'm not interested, but there is a happy medium there, and then you're going to have to determine that. Redirect? Redirect?
I think 12 months is
12 months is fine.
for long term, as opposed to maybe 18 months. 12 months still accomplishes what I'd like to see. And I have a question, I guess, is condo versus duplex. When you had the 4 duplexes, you were going to sell them as duplexes, not, this isn't going to be a condo association, right? They're not going to be being sold as condos.
So the exact structure of it being a condo where the individual owners own just the unit and then there would be limited common elements outside of that on the land. Versus an HOA, which I think would lend itself more to the individual separate units that we have, and then the association collectively is responsible for the road, the stormwater. So I don't have an answer for that right now. That would be something that we would have to talk about with the owners to see how they want to approach that. My guess is it would be an HOA with individual unit owners if we have detached. If we have duplexes, it may be the condo association. I'm a little out of my element, I'm an engineer, so I shouldn't talk too much about real estate law and the difference between the two, but.
They're two different sides of the same coin.
Yeah, Jerry, this setup has to be a condo, because in order to be an HOA, you need separate lots.
Yeah.
And then the common elements or the conservation elements are governed by the homeowners association. Here, you don't have separate lots.
Yeah.
So that it has to be a condo.
So it's a detached condo.
It's
Okay.
complicated. It's complicated.
It's complicated. Thank you.
Well, it's more complicated than a humble civil engineer.
Rupert, anything on redirect?
I just would echo the comments about, a comprehensive permit project is about affordable housing, so sort of 100% of AMI or less, I think is important, because 120% of AMI in Narragansett's something like $130,000 a year salary, so it's not really what most people consider affordable. And then the condo association provision for requiring at least 12 months, at least, I think, is part of that, so that it's housing and not
Tom?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Steph?
Nope.
Okay. Do you have anybody from the public that would like to comment on this?
I would like to comment.
Who would you like to go up?
Absolutely.
You've been patient. Can you state your name and where you live?
Yes, Martina Marasco. I live at 645 Point Judith Road. I'm an abutting property owner. I've been there for quite a long time. I have heard that, well, first of all, the property is, not that I've heard, I know the property is zoned R80. And I have heard I don't know if it's completely true, that if somebody, a property owner uses the affordable housing proposal, if they propose affordable housing, then they are able to avoid going to zoning. If that is correct, then I think this is a very egregious misuse of the affordable housing exception. And I also think approving such a thing would be, would set a very bad precedent for our town. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Sir?
Are you gonna answer it?
Yeah, I will. So,
Oh, you will.
so this is not a town, this is a state. And it doesn't avoid zoning, but it does give builders privileges. And some builders do it well. Some builders take advantage of the fact that it allows them to build on places that maybe wouldn't normally be built, at least to that density. So we work with the developer to try to create the best of the world. And if you look at this, this was originally 8 units, it's now down to 4 units. So you have a developer who is trying to work with you. For us, it's heartbreaking because we had 3 affordable units, now we have 1, but we have 1 unit. So again, it's not a carte blanche, but we have limited control over what happens and how it happens. But we do have some input into this. So, okay?
Thank you for explaining that.
Thank you, my pleasure. Sir?
Yeah, my name's Steve Moresco, and my daughter owns a piece of land adjacent to the property here. And I just have to say, I think it's actually a pretty bizarre and contrived proposal that just doesn't fit. It's bizarre in that anybody to think it's a good idea to construct 4 houses on a 10,000 square foot building envelope in an R80 zone. This is especially true because of the R80 zone. So I believe we have in Narragansett something called a comprehensive plan. I believe the comprehensive plan is actually being worked right now to be updated. It's a year-long process. I just wonder how this comports with the comprehensive plan of Narragansett. I think that's bizarre. Yet applicants are now attempting to use the cluster development provision, which requires 15 acres of land. They have less than 1/3 of that. They don't have 5,000. They're supposed to have 15. Excuse me, they don't have 5 acres. And they need 15 acres according to the cluster development provision. To me, that just is bizarre. I don't understand it. It just doesn't fit. And I'm sure it hasn't really come to you guys' attention, and I appreciate you gentlemen for all the work you do. The last hearing is indicative of some of the work that you have to do. I also think it's bizarre on this proposal that on the northern side of this lot, the setbacks are much less than on the southern side. Because on the northern side, it's being used an R10 setback requirement, whereas as opposed to this side, it's going to be using the R80 setback requirements. So if you look at the numbers here, it just really doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. The project doesn't fit. Why are we here? That would be my question. Now I'd also ask each of you gentlemen to imagine that if the house next door to you for some reason disappeared, and these gentlemen wanted to put 4 units on the lot next to your house, how you would feel about that. Or if you owned a parcel adjacent to that. I believe this is the outline of Miss Essex's property right here, where she and her family have been since the 1940s. It comes up to like 80 years. And all of a sudden, she no longer has the protections of an R80 zone. She's going to have 2 houses. Well, I don't know exactly how many feet they are from each other. And there are actually 3 other abutters who would like to be here, including my daughter, and several others who, when they told them about the meeting, they just not enough notice. One of them's out of state. But they're also concerned about the change that this is gonna do, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with the character of the neighborhood. It doesn't fit with the, what's been going on there for generations. There's another gentleman whose father named the street after his wife, Amy Street. He's been there 2 generations. It's just completely different from what has been there for a long, long time. In my opinion, it really doesn't fit. So I don't really understand, why this is happening. Somewhere in the prior paperwork, it came out, and it was declared there was 1 acre of dry land. Well, Dee Dee and I can both tell you from our multiple trips visiting Mrs. Gardner, who used to live right in the middle there, any time of the year, it was wet. This spring there were ducks in the front yard. There's basically no water table there at all. And when this gets developed, I just have no idea where this water is all gonna go. So I don't know, I just find it, very bizarre and contrived. And for one affordable unit, which somebody mentioned that if they go to the 120, it's not really that affordable, somebody'd have to make $130,000 to live there. We're giving up what has been a true R80 zone. So many questions. Is it gonna be a condo? Is there capacity in the private sewer line? I don't know, I think it needs a real close study. I'd be happy to provide pictures of what the conditions there is after a rainstorm. And I just having trouble figuring out why we are here at this point. I understand the need for affordable housing, but this just seems to be throwing out all the rules, throwing out the comprehensive plan, and asking for relief in so many different ways. I know when you go for relief before the zoning board, it's for hardship. And I'm looking to see where the hardship is with this. To me, it looks like something totally different. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
One of the provisions you need to understand is they have to keep all the runoff on their property. So they have to have systems in place and studies to do that. So that's one of the things that they're gonna have to have a plan before us. And again, this is just preliminary, this is the very first step. So they're gonna have to come to us with a plan on how they're gonna keep that water, any water and any runoff on the property.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Anybody else like to comment? Over here? Okay. Right. Redirect from the board? All right. Terry? Tom?
No, I'm just looking at the map, that's all.
Okay. Staff, anything you want to add?
No.
Okay. So, you've heard from us. I would like to say something about the curb cut. I like the fact that it is shielded from the street and it's all shrub. So, that's just my 2 cents. I like the existing proposal, but that's my 2 cents. We need to have the next meeting. Do you want to set that, or you want us to set this?
I think at this point, there's enough outstanding that we need to do. So it would be premature to set an arbitrary date.
Okay.
Because we just don't know how long that is going
That's
to
fair.
take. So.
Staff?
Oh, yeah, of course, this is a pre-application.
Yeah.
He can come back again, or
Yep.
never again.
Right.
Right. No, honestly, it is.
No.
You know what I mean.
He's always welcome.
It's a pre-application.
Yeah, no.
So I want to just be clear too, this is a comprehensive permit.
Right.
So all of the relief happens here at this board.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
All right.
We're acting as a zoning
Yeah,
board
we-
as well.
One more time,
We're
Mr.?
acting as the zoning board as well.
You are.
And
You
have to-
would
have
be.
to apply the same standards.
Right.
You would apply the same standards, but you wear both hats.
Yes.
Well, there are waivers, and when, there are waivers when you're in the comp permit as opposed to unified development, which you do in zoning.
Right.
So you're really doing the same thing, just they're adjustments.
They're adjustments.
That's true, they're adjustments, not, they were waivers, now they're adjustments.
If you're hearing, there's a lot of sarcasm in this, because a lot of these rules have changed.
Unless something changes in July.
In July.
And they will.
They will.
So we would close this hearing?
It's not here.
It's not
No,
a
it's not a
hearing.
hearing.
Not a
No
hearing,
hearing.
it's a
So,
conversation.
Would you like to add anything?
Just thank you for your time and your consideration.
All right, and
see
we'll
you
let
at
you
some point in the
work through
future.
it with the staff.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you.
good night.
Good night. All right. We have, okay, folks, we still have business at hand. We have site review, C1 Odell, Plat M, Lot 167-81, 25, sorry, I just lost my place. 25 Shore Road. The applicant has submitted a request to validate the existing right side landing and steps as built at the above referenced property. The project requires, can somebody shut that door? Thank you. The project requires a variance from the Breakwater Village Special District Dimensional Regulations, Section 4.8.1.5. This application is being reviewed under the amended Breakwater Village Special District Dimensional Regulations effective June 1, 2009. Previous application. This property has received the following zoning application. Zoning Board of Appeals, July 25th, 2023. Granted a variance and a special use permit under Section 4.4 Coastal Resources Overlay District and a special use permit from Section 4.816 Breakwater Village District to demolish the existing dwelling and construct a two-story dwelling with deck. The findings of fact for this project are as follows. Existing conditions. Existing 25 by 37 irregular shaped two-story dwelling with an attached deck. Existing lot coverage approximately 791 square feet or 28.6%. Okay. Validation is that, so the proposed improvements is the validation of the existing right side landing steps. The improvements associated with projects are reflected on the as-built plan completed by Christopher Palmer, PLS, dated August 8, 2024, that was submitted with this application. Lot 167, Unit 81 is approximately 2,700 square feet in area and is located within Breakwater Village zone. The building official issued a zoning ordinance violation letter dated October 4th, 2024, which found that this property is in violation of the Town of Narragansett zoning ordinance, Section 4.8.1.5, dimensional regulations. The existing setback of the right side landing and stairs from the property line is 4.7 feet. It is required to be 7 feet. Sir, is that pretty close?
Yes.
Okay, so can you introduce yourself and tell us your role and present?
My name is Steve Lawrence, with Lawrence Builders. I'm the builder on this project and representing Stephen and Allison Odell, who are the owners of the house. So as the chairman just had mentioned, that we tore down this house, built a brand new one. As you all know the process, Breakwater Village Architectural Board, we go to them, we present them with our site plan. Gail Halleck was a designer on this house. We give them stamped design plans, gets approved, goes to the town. We come in front of you in the zoning board and we get a permit, we start moving forward. So we're here today to talk about that section right there, that's in that red square. That's the front entryway. On our site plan, which I mentioned Chris Palmer had made, our site plan does not show an entryway into this house, just shows the foundation. Our stamp plans that went through architectural board and through the town from Gail does show those stairs on. So we built this house exactly to these architectural plans. Not until this whole project was finished did we realize the site plan itself didn't have the stairs on it. So we're here having a conversation about what do we do about this. This is the front stairs and the landing goes into the front of the house, the front door of the house, the entryway. I think it might have just been an oversight at some point for everyone that looked at them. But as you can see, the corner of the landing, it's a 3-foot landing off the house, and part of those stairs do infringe onto that setback.
This house was just finished in July, it's a brand new house, young couple with kids, they enjoy it. So this is our last step to get through to figure out how to give them a CO. We have a temporary CO right now. So I'm asking for some help.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah, it presents obviously a hardship, but you created the hardship. So, all these sites, as you know, are very tight, and anything that extends from these sites is a problem. And even though you, in your presentation, sound like this was done, quote, innocently, in my opinion, having sat here for many years, if we said yes, we accept this, because it's there, we accept this, and you don't think the next person is gonna decide, it's always better to ask forgiveness than permission. So, in my opinion, it's correctable, expensive, yeah, but it obviously is not in conformity with Breakwater Villages, rules, regulations, and dimensions, which we suffered with them for years to create. And from the standpoint of the planning board, it's correctable, it's expensive, but it's the problem of the owner, etc. Not this board's problem to correct that. It should be corrected. That's my opinion. It can be corrected. Expensive, but it can be corrected.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know how you would correct it without going into the structure, but can the less relief if you turn the walk towards that parking space? You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so.
Did you consider that?
I think you're talking about right here at the
Yeah,
stairs going
and
there.
having the walk, yes.
So we would still have the same problem as, you know, we have this part of the stairs that are in the setback. If we're still gonna have that same problem.
Yes, but
I've thought about that, but we're still in the setback.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
you don't have somebody walking in the street there, especially on that turn.
Sure.
It might prevent that.
Yeah, then that's a possibility if that would be something that would be granted and allow us to do that, sure. Right, to just repair it the way that it is, we wouldn't even have a 3-foot wide stairway as per code just to head down the stairs. Right.
You couldn't put 3 feet in there. What's the
Right
dimension
here,
of that?
that part right there,
Yeah.
that's well under 3 feet.
Oh. What are you gonna have to do to comply if it's turned down?
I guess if it's completely turned down, they can't use that door to enter their house.
All right, I'm gonna have.
So right now, we have 3 feet off the house, which is a minimum here.
Right there,
Yeah, from here to there's 3 feet.
yeah, so
And
can't you
then
turn?
That setback is right there in that corner.
Right.
So if we turn it, I have, I don't know, 2 feet maybe to have a stairway come down, which,
That'd be a lot safer, though.
but it's not the code.
No, I understand that, but I would think it's a lot safer. I mean, a child could just run out that stair, there's only that 2 or 3 feet, and somebody could be making that turn. I was surprised when I drove by and saw it. I don't have any other comments.
So I had a conversation with Wayne about this, and it seems like there's a technicality involved in it. And that's not the front of the house, it's the side of the house. And if it was the front of the house, the setback for the stairways is exempt.
Right. Yeah.
So if that was considered the front of the house, it wouldn't be an issue.
You can get your address changed.
I was just gonna answer that question, so that's, I mean, they know that happens.
I know somebody will recommend it to a couple once. Rupert, anything else?
No, I just,
Tom?
I just want to be sure I understood the testimony, Steve.
Yeah.
The door was or was not on the plans?
Do you have the picture of the
So,
site plan that was presented?
what else do you have?
This
Okay,
is-
so right there, it does not show, this doesn't show that stairway.
Yeah, I lost.
It doesn't show a doorway, it doesn't show a doorway.
Right, so that stairway is right here in this corner.
Oh.
And there's no
Doesn't
door-
show that stairs.
Doesn't show the stairs, doesn't show the door.
No, it just really shows the
Right.
foundation, right?
But I thought,
So we're,
I'm sorry, Tom. Go.
So,
But the construction drawings show all that.
absent looking, I just don't see an entranceway into the house at all based on that diagram. Is that, am I missing something?
There is, so this outdoor shower,
Yeah,
you can get through that outdoor shower into a laundry room entrance right there.
okay.
Yeah.
So
So
if there
that's the
was-
second means of egress into the house.
Okay, that's it for now.
So, if memory serves me right, we talked about this in length. Because we had another one that was similar to this that I think one of your clients had, with similar side stuff. If you go back to the picture of the as-built, the photograph, I mean, to me, the scary part is that this steps right off into the street. And I had the same concern. You got a young family, you got kids just go. So if we can go back one, I'm trying to figure out a sober, happy medium, because I believe you built from the build plans, not necessarily from what was permitted, et cetera. So your assumption is that you built. But I swear we had long conversations about this. And the idea was that, yeah, you'd be in the setback. You're gonna be in the setback either way. And they need to use their main entrance. I mean, again, just for the record, this hardship was created by them. So I'm just talking out loud. But to me, if you came to this corner of the house, so it doesn't look stupid, and extend it with a railing here, and so the stairs are here, so that you have to come out and come down this way, and you're going into what is the parking area. I'd be far more comfortable in that than just okaying this. And I don't think it's a huge expensive.
No, I
this
think
gives you
I
what?
agree with you on that.
This gives you what? 3 feet, 14 more,
Yeah.
right? So it's a nice sized landing. You put a nice railing there with stairs down here. It'll look like it belonged. It'll be a smart fix. I would be okay with that. But I'm not comfortable with approving this. So,
I'm
staff?
okay with that too. I think the owners would be okay with that as well.
Recommending something to the zoning board, not.
We're just still discussing here. Haven't got the formal part. Anybody in the audience want to talk about this? Or that's on a butter? No, you can't speak. Doc, redirect?
Masonry? Can you make it masonry?
We're gonna have to make it whatever they recommend.
Well, that's what I'm
Yes,
saying. It wouldn't be
absolutely.
a structure then.
Still the setback.
Still a setback issue. Yeah,
It's not a structure.
it's a setback issue. Doc, redirect?
Yeah, I would just state that this board is not an architectural board of review to solve people's problems that are created. The question is this acceptable as it's presented to us? And the answer is, to me, the answer is no. So, to the presenter to correct the problem. So it's nice that you want to soften it or modify it or whatever, but that's not the function of this board. We're not architecturally empowered to do this. What's presented before us, in my opinion, is not acceptable. It was maybe done innocently, That's not the point. It can be corrected. The cost, as stated in our rules of reg, cost is not our concern. So I just pointed out that it's nice that we talk to people about, well, what did you do? Did you ever think about, this, that? But that's not our function, to be architects. So you can tell where I'm going. You guys.
Jerry?
Gee, I concur with Mark on moving the step out to the end of the house and making the turn would make it infinitely easier, much more palatable for me. I would say that I would not be approving the variance as requested. For all the reasons stated.
Rupert?
I agree with the suggestions about the redesign, I think. And Doc, even though we're not architects, it is our, in providing a recommendation, the planning board shall also recommend such modifications and conditions as will bring proposed project into compliance. So it's a little bit of our purview. But I think, other than going in through the shower, that's really
Which would make it interesting.
That's a clean exit.
Tom?
In through the bathroom window.
Sounds like a great song. Tom, any questions?
It's not, I guess I'm listening to both of these things. It's still not clear to me whether or not the modifications that you've described, Mark, would still require relief or not.
It would require release.
So I think.
And what we're here to determine is to approve whether or not we approve relief on this.
That's correct. So that's.
Now, what they come back with
That's my.
is up to them, and because we've made suggestions, we're not telling you that's the end all. We just make recommendations to the zoning board. And our recommendation right now is on this proposal.
Well, I guess here's where I'm not clear. Notwithstanding what you read, whether or not the applicant should withdraw the application for consideration this evening, go back and make the modifications consistent with what you're, then come back and ask on the basis of that those modifications for the relief that would require. If that's where we're going, I'm good with that.
And that's what he's going to have to do, because he's going to have disclaimer.
If that's where, that would be in terms of advice, as opposed to being asked to approve this, this modification tonight. I think that's the best way to proceed.
And as Mr. Callahan is not telling you the best way to proceed or what we're telling you what to do, what I typically do will tell you, you've heard the direction that we're going. Would you like to table this and come back to us later?
Yes.
Okay.
Jill?
Well,
Jill's like, they ran away from me again.
no, I just want the language to be clear, that what you'd be offering is completeness and conformance with the comprehensive plan and a recommendation in zoning.
Yep.
So there's no decisions that are being made
No.
for the
Correct.
site review.
None.
Okay.
No.
Because oftentimes we use it, we'll approve,
No.
but just so we're all clear, these are recommendations. This application, unlike the last two that you heard, will go to the zoning board.
Yeah, and as I stated, we're not telling him that if he comes back with that it's approved. One, we make a recommendation.
But the
And-
opposite is, Mr. Chairman, is he could just take your denial.
He could
I'm not
take-
telling him what to
he
do,
could.
but I mean,
Right.
there's options.
And that's why I left it to him as to whether or not he wants to come back at another time.
Yes.
And get time to
Okay.
speak with his client. Bullpen coach just came in. Kind sir, what would you like to do?
So, I think what I'll just do is, I'll take your vote, I'll go to zoning,
Okay,
see what they say.
all right. Okay.
Do we have one more question?
Yep, and we have a redirect. Doc, redirect? Nothing? Jerry?
Where does Breakwater Village re-in here? Because it says it's no longer complies with their dimensional regulations. If we approve it, do they still have to approve it?
So this actually had gone back to them, and it's with them right now.
Yeah. No, that's why it comes here.
Okay. Good, thanks.
Tom?
But breakwater, it's at breakwater right now, but they haven't made a determination yet, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions?
Okay, so our recommendation is to the zoning board, which they decided to go to? Yes.
Yeah, wait just a minute here. If it's before them and they have not made a decision, how can we make a decision that may be in contrast to the Breakwater Village?
We refer to council on this?
Because you're not making it, you're making a recommendation, and it has to, if one of two things, either a certain length of time has to pass, or they have to make their recommendation before it goes to the.
But can I say I need that decision for me to decide this particular issue?
Or you can just deny it,
Well,
because you don't have that
But I'm
information.
saying, I'd love to have that piece from them.
You-
In terms of me making a decision.
You
If
could-
they feel, because they, if you heard me say at the beginning of my presentation, if that's where this is gonna go, even though this was innocent, the next person is not gonna be innocent. So the question is, do we have all of the facts at the end to make a decision? And I certainly would like to have their input. If Breakwater Village is willing to say, well, in any case, that's my feeling, I don't know about my
I
colleagues.
think we have to make the decision on what we have.
Yeah, but it seems if the applicant is willing to withdraw or wait and come back, so once the decision tonight, then the only option is for you, Don, to deny.
And we have made decisions without Breakwater.
Yes.
Sometimes that, you're right.
Okay. All right, so we need to move a recommendation to the zoning board on 25 Shore Road, Breakwater Village. Yep. This would be your request for dimensional relief on the setbacks of the as-built stairs, which were in violation of what was approved. Need a motion on appropriateness?
The appropriateness, do we need an application
Completeness
on
and
completeness?
conformance.
On completeness, rather. I'm
Completeness
sorry.
and conformance, Dr. O'Neill.
So, move the application before us, Odell Tax Assessor Plat M. Lot 167-81 is complete, conforms with comprehensive plan of the town.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous. Okay, do I have a motion or recommendation to the zoning board?
Move the application before us, Odell Tax Assessor Plat M, Lot 167-81. Negatively, on the basis of the material before us, that comments are made in the staff's data here presented to us November 13, 2024. This project no longer complies with dimensional regulations of the Breakwater Village Special District. The conditions, standards that are to be met.
Becoming irrelevant. We're denying.
That's what I said, negative.
Yeah, so we're denying the negative. So what you might want to add, though, is that the hardship was created by
Yep.
the applicant.
And if there are alternatives available.
And there are.
Going down to standards, the hardship is created by the applicant, the compliance with the applicable developments, in 1, 2, compatibility, all the way down to 16, availability of alternatives. As I said before, it's expensive, but there are alternatives to what's presented.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, so so the recommendation based on this, from this board to the zoning board is to deny. Okay, so your next step is that.
Thank
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being patient.
Thanks.
You're gonna listen to all that they had to say.
All right. We have our first.
We can discuss architectural suggestions later. Other ways to do this.
All right, I have a request for time extension. Brookside East, 1 year, final plat. Previous action was June 21st, 2022. Voted to approve. The applicant is seeking a 1-year extension. We have representative from,
Yeah, she's distracted.
That's a good way, I will do that.
Ms. Sonder, you're up.
She's convincing with.
you've already done your introduction and everything. The most amazing,
I
Ms.
did tell
Saunders.
him to say he appreciates all the advice.
Sure he does.
Hi. I'm here on behalf of Joe Paglia, and he's there, and George Lenihan, who owned this property. This is Brookside Estates off of South Pier Road. It's been a long process. We are still under construction, and of late we've been trying to negotiate houses on these particular lots. And I actually met with Mike DeLuca last spring, and we came up with a couple of different alternatives. And while we have a little bit of play left in the development with construction and things going on, we'd like to extend or request an extension of the final so we could modify some of these lot lines.
So you want to just let us know why you need to modify the lot lines, please? Just for the record.
Yep. So if you, particularly, as an example, lot 4, which is that lot on the northeast side there. As of now, those setback lines are substantially already, you know, it's a small footprint can fit in there. And then with the new regulations, setback regulations, we are getting even smaller. So trying to fit homes, practical homes on a couple of these lots made us revisit the lot lines, and I was able to come up with a few modified different versions that would conform to the setbacks of today, which are being imposed without any relief from zoning or the 5 and 15% modification. So it would make the lots more feasible and more in conformance.
So what you're asking to do is just extend time so you can work those out.
Yep, and I think it'll be a better development in doing that. So I would request that we have another extension to complete this, and the fact that the road is still under construction.
Steph, any comments?
No.
Doc? Any comment?
No, I luckily ran into to Joe outside. I drive by there a number of times every day, and I keep wondering.
It's getting close.
I was looking to see a house going up. So, in any case, he explained that. Thank you.
Rupert? Jerry first?
No, thank you. Good.
Rupert?
So I have a question for Steve. Why is there a time limit that they're going to come back and ask for an extension? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, because the approvals are only, under our ordinance, are only good for a certain period of time. And then for 1 or 2 years, and then you have the right to ask for an extension of right, which they've done. And then the extensions have to be for cause.
Okay.
And that's the cause that she's stating now. If you did nothing, the approval would lapse.
Okay.
And then they have to come back again and get everything it wouldn't forbid a new subdivision, but it wouldn't be. And a lot of developers, for safety purposes, get the extensions. So it's certainly prudent to get it. It's within the period, and
Yeah, I just noticed
Yeah,
that we did it a 1-year extension a year ago, so it's like.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
so that's it, you can, yeah, you have the certain period of time, then you have a year for no call, you can just ask for it,
Yeah.
and then,
And we
and
didn't
after that-
start construction until after that last extension, so it's been under construction the past year.
Tom?
Nothing.
Okay. So the applicant is asking for an extension of 1 year to deal with the new setbacks. Do I have a motion?
Yes, move that request for your extension positively.
Second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All those opposed? It's unanimous.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Administrative matters. Chairman has no announcements. I would like us to look at our workshop sometimes, so we can get to our list of things that we wanted to do. I've actually thought of a couple things to add to that as we've gone and tackled things in the last year. So, planning board bylaws and rules and procedures, E2.
Is in here for
Shelley, you wanna take us through that?
information or
Sure.
for confirmation? or
Yep, so
explanation?
last month you heard it.
Yep,
So last month you heard it, there were a couple of questions, I believe the questions were answered, which did not require necessitate any changes. So if you're satisfied with the way that it's drafted, with the strikeout and underline, I will take care of that accordingly and send it up to town council for their receipt and placement on file,
we
and they'll
already
be
need a
your new
motion,
bylaws.
we need a motion on that, or?
Yeah, I need a
we
motion,
do.
you bet.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Okay, Doc, this is your wheelhouse. I need approval of minutes. First is September 17th, 2024. Heidi, is anybody
Rupert
exempt
and
for
Tom
that?
are not voting on those.
Okay.
Rupert has been picking up Heidi mistakes better than I do, so.
Well, I wasn't there, so I gotta abstain.
Okay.
I didn't see anything.
I
Okay.
like it when you say I'm perfect, Doc.
No.
Well, I believe he says that all the time. It's
Near
just
perfect.
sometimes there's a mistake.
Near perfect.
All right. So, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of September 17th, 2024?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
All those in favor?
I can't second.
No,
Yeah,
No,
I
you
would
can't, I was
say-
about to say, you can't second it.
Excuse me.
Heidi and Callahan can't.
Jerry?
So it has to be.
Jerry?
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous.
302.
Okay,
So,
I have
October 15th.
October 15th, 2024.
Okay.
Anybody missing on that one? I don't believe so.
And Jerry.
Jerry?
I wasn't, yeah, I wasn't there.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't see,
All right.
I didn't see anything.
I have some edits on this one, Chairman.
Hmm?
I have a few edits on this one.
Okay.
So on page 2, D1 Turnbull Realty, there's a part where Dr. Neal, his comments are there. And I think we had to add in there that there was extensive discussion by the board about noise from the bocce court.
Yeah, I think Mark
Well, there was,
spoke very strongly
Yeah, but-
about that too.
yeah, but it just states that I spoke about the noise from the additional outdoor living space. It didn't go on to the
Well, you're concerned about the
lack
lack
of
of
noise
noise control.
lack of noise control since the additional outdoor living space. I kind of looked at that the bocce was included, but I think because it sits so close to the property line, I think we should, because I did go in detail about that. I think we should include that in as that was a valid concern, that abating the noise from not only outdoor living, but also from the recreation of the bocce court being so close to the property line.
Abating noise from bocce court.
And then on page 3, where it has Joe Sabo informed the board members that the town's hazard mitigation plan was approved and adopted, this will allow the residents to receive 15% discount on their home insurance. I think it's 15% discount on their
Flood insurance.
flood hazard insurance.
You're right. And it's.
Otherwise, I'm not getting my.
If not,
Right.
I'll take the
Exactly.
15%, thank you.
So, and that's even, it's a sort of correct statement. I think there were probably a few sentences in there that predicated that 15%, which means we're continuing to be in compliance with the community rating system, which is the program where we go above and beyond.
Right.
And when we do so, then including having an updated hazard mitigation plan, that program is what allows us the 15%, not simply just having an updated hazard mitigation plan. But that's one of the components of the community rating system.
I have a question to our counselor here. He's doing other things, but Steve, can I ask you?
Sure.
Why wouldn't a bocce court, which is 87 feet long, 13 feet wide, 5-inch timbers all around it, be considered in this conversation? According to Venandalia, he says the bocce court doesn't require it. You can put a bocce court 87 feet long, 13.1 feet wide, and they got those big timbers all around it. That's not a structure? Who
Well-
figured that out? Some Irish judge who doesn't know about bocce?
Well, I know, at our family reunion,
Don't
when
you
we
insult my
play
father.
bocce, we actually don't, you don't actually need the timbers in the back.
That's right, they're not required.
They're just one, I'll call it railroad tie, the old railroad tie, one,
Yeah.
you don't need the.
But you don't
anything
take it
as
in
a
at night, it's not like croquet, I mean.
No, but it's
It's a structure.
it's a landscaping feature, it'd be the,
it's a
if you
landscaping
counted,
feature.
if you counted that as a structure, then you would count anything around a garden. if you
Potted
put,
grain, anything.
anything like that, so,
Yeah.
that's why it's not, and I believe that at the end, I don't know if the bocce court is going to remain anyway, but in my opinion, the railroad ties around the area are not a structure. And again,
As I said, I mean, it's,
the question is, Doc, would one railroad tie be, one and one be a structure? Probably not. Maybe if 5 of them, got piled up, maybe that might be a structure, but.
you could get one of the backboards on rollers to have that kind of noise created. It's a sports event. On the property line, 2.5 acre piece of property.
And
It's like, you guys know that, right? It's 2.5 acre piece of property. I mean, it's not near me, it's not gonna bother me. So that's not the reason I'm bringing it up, but and when they told me about the pool and the patio there, I said, it's okay, it's way down there, and I'm the abutting owner of this stretcher. But over here, who's there? Deecroft is there, Mark or Lenny? Lenny was the father, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think it's Mark.
Mark is the son. Well, hopefully he has some representative there to discuss this with the zoning people.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more suggested edit on
Okay, there we go.
page 3, E5. The heading is Urban Renewal Zone Award Update. I think we should add the word grant in there, so it reads Urban Renewal Zone Grant Award Update.
So with those corrections, you need a motion.
So move.
Move.
There we are.
There you go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, who made it?
Doc?
I did, Tom seconded.
Okay.
Okay. Items for next agenda. Inclusionary zoning legislation, Bloom, update, and comprehensive plan, planning board action items.
Yes, so also Kristen Frady from the Wood River Health,
Oh, cool.
Health Equity Zone. So that right there is an agenda unto itself.
Yep,
And you also have a continued public hearing.
all right.
So, Mr. Chairman, we can talk offline if you want to move one or two of these. I would still like to put inclusionary zoning on because we talked about that.
Yep.
I know a moment ago you just talked about a special meeting. I don't know if you want to try to tackle.
Not with the holidays, but coming out of the holidays, I'd like to get our workshop together and start to look at the items that we listed as action items we'd like to look at and see if we prioritize those and tackle any of those. But I don't want to, coming through the holidays, I don't want to pile on, as they say. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah, of course. I just, so that would be G3, we're gonna move to to another date unknown, right? That's gonna be a special meeting.
Okay.
And the other two are fine. What I'm going to do for the future land use map is I just wanna give you an update as to where we still have discrepancies, where we were able to, at the last comprehensive plan, we went through and changed some of the zoning, some of the 9 or 12 lots, however many there were. When it went to council made changes to some and not to others, but we do have these discrepancies, whereas you may be aware, the future land use map is the carrying document at this point for review, for projects being reviewed. So we do have a few discrepancies in town that you, if we have previously tried to change the zoning and it got shot down, you can go that route again, or you can, we can look at potentially changing the future land use map.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things on our workshop list of tackling that. And it also came out in our action items, when we reviewed the action items of establishing the baseline of what we think we accomplished, and then looking at some other things that we're not going to take up now, but that was also on our list. So it's a priority for this group to do that.
So I'll have both of those for you. And Kristen Frady, she's with the Health Equity Zone. She had deferred from this month to next month. Do you want to start the new year fresh with an update from the Health Equity Zone?
If she's available.
Yeah, so I can ask her to come in
please.
January.
Yeah.
Presumably, maybe your public hearing will be done by then.
That'd
Might
be
have
great.
others, but at least that one. Okay, I will put her then to January.
I also got an email from the town clerk that they need an annual report from the planning board.
Yes, we do that.
Okay, I was
Mike
curious.
does that, actually. It's very great. Yeah.
Thank
She'll do everything, and then it'll come to you,
Meeting dates come to you, and proposed meeting dates for 2025 will be on next month's agenda, and the annual report will be in January's meeting.
Good, because I panicked when I got the email. But I hoped I would take care of it.
no, we take care of it.
Good, thank you.
Can I ask a question? The record is still open for the public hearing we have tonight? Remains open?
Yes.
All right, yes?
One of the things, Steve, I asked the recorder here, more and more of my friends are agnostics. They don't believe in anything. So well, no, however you want to take it. So I said to her, she, swearing people at everywhere I go. You swear to tell, so help you God. And so I said, well, don't you have people saying, I don't believe in God. So how do you modify it? So she said, well, you can, she has verbiage for that.
Yeah, they do have a different, they do have a different clause that they do say for people who object to that.
And then I said to her, well, what about somebody gets up there and says, I'm not swearing to anything. I'm here to, and she said, to my knowledge, I can't take their testimony. And I don't know if you can. So I said, well, maybe I ought to ask Steve.
Well,
That's a good question.
yeah, unsworn testimony would be, in my opinion, weighed differently
Yeah.
than sworn testimony. I mean, that's the
He
way
was
I would
just
say.
using a word, yeah.
I wouldn't not allow someone to speak at a public hearing because they refuse to get sworn.
Yeah.
But I would direct the board or any board that, certainly their testimony unsworn has less weight to it
Yeah.
and less, in theory, credibility.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a,
Okay.
it's almost like a
Yes,
notarized document or a non-notarized document. Is a non-notarized document sometimes valid? Yes. Is it better to be witnessed and notarized? Absolutely, so.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. That time of the night, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So you, yes, move to adjourn.
Seconded?
I'll second that.
All right, non-debatable,
It's all because of you.
all those in favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Gentlemen?
Aye.
Gentlemen?
Aye.
It's you.